Okay. So good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at 2 minutes after 7. And the first item is just additions, deletions, or changes to our agenda. Guess there are none. We do have a public comment. Now, this is an opportunity if you have something, not for lot 15, not because we have that on the next item on the agenda. So is there any public comment outside of what's on the agenda? All right. The next item on the agenda is comments on lot 15 from Responsible Growth of Hinesburg. They asked for some time at this meeting, and we have a very busy couple of meetings. We're starting our budget schedule, so we allowed 15 minutes. What's that?
For accommodation.
Yeah, so we allowed 15 minutes for this item. We're going to listen to the comments from Responsible Growth of Hinesburg. And how many other people think they're going to have a comment on this?
I think there may be just two people speaking.
Two people?
One person from one. Yeah, I think we have.
Okay, so we're going to keep it within this 15 minutes. And then after the select board may have a comment or a clarifying question, we will not be taking any action today. We'll take the comments under consideration. We will also be talking with our council on comments, and any possible follow-up, probably will be one, will certainly be warned, and it will be an opportunity for more public input. Yes.
Yes, I'd like to just make a comment that I will be sitting, listening to the comments as a member of the select board. There may be a perception that I have a conflict of interest in that I did testify during the Act 250 hearing about the canal path because I had extensive knowledge about what kinds of public investment went into building the canal path. And in consultation with our town lawyer, he advised that I should just disclose that. I feel like I can represent the interests of the town, and as we move ahead, there may be some issues in which the select board is acting in a quasi-judicial manner, in which I may need to recuse myself, but at this point, when we're just listening and discussing things, I think I can hear information and contribute to the conversation that the select board is having. If anybody else has any?
Anybody else? Okay. Catherine? Maybe introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi, I'm Catherine Goldsmith. Just speaking as one member of Responsible Growth Hinesburg. Thank you. And I just wanted to show a few images, and since we didn't do that the first time, which I think clarify some of the text that I read and the things that we talked about. And I know this is not fancy. Let's see if I can make it look at least a little better. This first, let's see if I can get this to open up. This is just language from the original description.
Sorry, take your time. We'll get it. You wanna...
Well, no,
Heck, we even had problems.
I'm not sure why it's not open.
Maybe close that window on the bottom, close that.
Okay, well, that's a little better, yeah. Let's close this underneath. Because they're all open. Thought that might actually make it easier, but it's not. Okay, well, So this is language from the original Act 250. I have 150 up there. Act 250 permit submitted by the Giroux. This is the description that was seen by the local planning commission at that time before there was a DRB. And it describes the project as being designed for primarily local, small scale and startup businesses which are appropriate to the local scale of development. And that's an attachment to the original Act 250 permit. And I don't mean to make this into a discussion about supermarket versus no supermarket, but I felt that that language was important. Some of these things were seen extensively during DRB hearings, but I realized that Selectmen board members weren't necessarily there and didn't see a lot of the detail. Okay, let's see. Well, maybe it would be better for me just to describe them because I really don't want to
Sure.
take too much time. Another one of the slides is directly from the Hannaford's Act 250 application where it discusses the economic impact. And this is something that's been going around on Front Porch Forum quite a bit this week. And I was going to show you their language that says that the economic impact, there's detailed language, but that it would result in a $6 decrease in the average taxpayer's municipal tax bill, $6.60. And then let me show you the pictures, which is really what, if I can find them. A little bit of timeline. And just a little bit to fill in the timeline. So the Giroux subdivision was approved in 1986. Lot 15 was recognized by the Village Steering Committee in 2007 as an important central piece of land that could be crucial in planning a pleasant and walkable downtown village area. It was put on the official map by the Planning Commission in 2009 and enacted by the Select Board. And then and the idea behind the official map is that it's a way for the town to issue basically warning to developers that come that the town has interest in a certain piece of property. And that all happened before Hannaford submitted any kind of application in the town. Actually, there's, and sorry, my mouth is really dry. So then this is from the Lot 15 committee report. I really want to make sure that all the newer members of the Select Board have a chance to review this. I'm happy to submit clearer things via email. But
Well,
this,
I mean, I think,
on our
we,
town
yeah,
website.
Oh,
we have a
yes, I
copy
know.
of that. Yeah.
okay.
And I think we all, all the select
Okay.
board members have seen it. But go ahead.
But this is very interesting language that says that the reason Williston had lower tax rates is not because they had commercial development, but because they have other income streams which offset town costs, and to some extent they had larger items on their grand list. So, just one more. Oh, and that's the one I was just speaking of, the bottom line. Lower the annual municipal tax bill of the average single-family home by $6.65 per year, and that's from their application. I've done no analysis whatsoever. Just one quick image from the Lot 15 committee.
up a little. It's
I'm
really
sorry.
bright here.
I'm sorry. My mouth is really dry. I came straight from work, so, oop. And this is not the one I wanted to open. Just as an indicator for the select board, and because there's been a lot of sort of talk about Lot 1 on Front Porch Forum, et cetera, about why can't we use that for the lot for a town green, and it is only 1.6 acres. I wanted to show an image that really shows the size of Lot 15, which is 4.6 acres. Oh gosh. Is this what I just opened? Oh my goodness. All right. I'm so sorry. You have them on the town website. I think I may have renamed something wrong.
I mean, obviously, it's not, sorry, it's not going as well for you.
No.
Certainly,
sorry.
if you want to put together other people, all the comments that we've gotten via emails to any one of us individually or as a group are all being collected into.
They're all on the website.
They're all on the website. So, I mean, if you have a packet of things you wanted to put together, you could do the same thing, and the select board, and in fact, everybody has access to that.
And this is just as an image from the 4th of July parade. Just as a comment on Lot 15 being used as a town green, how wonderful it would be if, as people watch the parade and they gather here and they sit here, if then there was actually a park adjacent to here where people could then gather, watch the end of the parade, collect their children off the floats, have picnics, and the vendors from the various churches, Boy Scouts, etc., could do their food vending right on Lot 15, right at the end of the parade, instead of being, on the front and on the sides of the road, because that's an event that's important, I think, to everyone in town. So, and there's just another shot. I'm sorry, I didn't do. But I'll get you your info. Should I just
Yeah, that would be good.
unscrew that?
You could send it to Renee or any one of us. Are there any particular comments?
I think they had one person.
One other person?
Yep.
Okay.
Hello,
Hi, Don.
Dawn Francis.
Just seating a guest of honor seat.
Dawn Francis, 251 Butternut Lane. I think I know most of you around the table. And I'm here, no hidden agendas. I think I just have a little more time now that I'm retired and wanted to
Thanks for rubbing that in.
provide a little
I
different
stopped listening,
perspective.
by the way. No, go ahead. Sorry.
So, and I don't think that the issue of Lot 15 is necessarily about Hannafords, all right? I'd like to offer a couple other thoughts. I think you have a note that I wrote and I posted also on Front Porch Forum. I think the issue of whether or not the town should acquire Lot 15 is really about prioritizing and maximizing the use of commercially zoned land, of which we have a pretty limited supply here in Hinesburg. And furthermore, this is in your village growth area. This is our designated state-recognized village center. There's not a lot of those in the state of Vermont, so we have a competitive edge there. Prioritizing our limited financial and staff resources, preserving future options for commercial investment in Hinesburg, and considering our taxpayers' ability to pay for another public facility when there's other options and land that exist in the community. So just a couple questions. Why would we take the only vacant, commercially zoned parcel in our community that can accommodate more than 20,000 square foot retail use on Commerce Street, underlined, in Commerce Park, underlined, in the village center, underlined, and already served by a traffic light, roads, utilities, and then we're going to dedicate it for use as a public park? It doesn't make any sense to me as a former community planner or as a former local town manager. Second question, should the select board make such an important decision to acquire this land without a town vote or a designated acquisition fund. Third question is, why are we continuing to pay legal fees and spending time working against a potential investor in our community, and actually a service that's probably needed in our community? So, in summary, regardless of whether it's a Hannaford's or some other commercial use, I see this parcel of land as a potential revenue generator that would add to our limited tax base and important services. And I respectfully request that the board reject the proposal to acquire this parcel by eminent domain. And further, I'd also ask that you consider taking action to remove it entirely from the official map as a public facility so that we can maximize its commercial potential. So bottom line is, let's take care of what we already have. Let's invest in the improvements to the land that we now own before we go acquiring more. And as an aside, I didn't know that this thing would go so viral. I just, posted on Front Porch Forum. Really not trying to make a name for myself, just trying to get the word out there that I had a perspective to share. But the interesting thing is, since I posted on Front Porch Forum, I've had more than 50 people reach out to me or share that message on Facebook or react to it in a positive manner. So I think I speak for a few other people than just myself. All right, thank you.
All right, great. Any questions?
And I got a copy of this.
All right. So we're already over our 15 minutes, but if there was, any other comments that are appropriate at this point, again, we're not going to make any decisions today. We continue to get some counsel, and, I think next week we'll probably have some discussions in executive session. So, go ahead.
I think, even if we have discussions in executive session, it will be important for the public to understand all of the things that we consider as we make that decision. So I don't think that, I personally, speaking as one member of the board, I don't want to come out of an executive session and just say, this is what we decided. I really feel like the public needs to understand all the things that we're considering and how we got to the place that we are today, and so we may end up, talking with our lawyer, but any decision that we make, there will be, the way that the DRB makes a decision with their findings of fact and their conclusions, I would hope that we would be able to convey all the issues that we are needing to consider as we make a decision.
Yeah, no, I
That's
think
all.
that's a very
Yeah.
good point. Yep. Yeah, and we certainly wouldn't come out of an executive session or any point and come up with a surprise decision. We certainly will have open discussion, and I think you're right. Whatever is decided in the end needs to be explained why.
Right.
I would wholeheartedly agree there with that, Senator, because there are things that we talk about that we haven't talked about here exactly yet that might be, that are important to mention, so I agree. And that will happen.
Okay, I thank everybody for respectful input on a very difficult subject, and I think 8 years in the running, and now it's really coming to a point here. So thank you very much. Yeah, everybody's good? Yeah?
Does Catherine have anything she needs to share?
Please make sure
Give it to Renee.
Yeah, she will.
Yeah, okay.
All right. There goes one. Yeah. This is right. Yeah.
Budgets?
Oh, you guys don't just dress up for any old buddy. My sunglasses on. Hey, did you go down, put out the fire at all down at the Feed Commodities? Did you go down there?
Jens and
Yeah.
Hinesburg?
Yeah, you were down there. I figured you probably had something to do with it.
Yeah, because of the I don't wanna say the lack of mutual aid, but the need for
People, yeah.
people and
Two right in
help.
a row and, yeah,
And we're actually on their list for any large fires now.
yeah.
I'll go to Harrisburg and Virgins.
That was a large one.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Carpenter Cars Library. There you go.
So I have to say at the outset that it was really impressive last year of just how organized you were, how much information you had, and how put together it all was. I remember all of us commenting. So you have a hard act to follow yourself.
Well, hopefully we repeated it.
Yes.
You got electronic distribution, right?
Yeah, we got several things. We got the spreadsheet, we got profit and loss statement, and then the tax form, and then disclosure of, what's the library fund called? The official.
Oh,
sort of-
the Art Greeno Fund.
Your
that's what we call
investments.
it. Our
Oh,
investment.
that's on our
yeah.
balance sheet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
balance sheet.
Yep.
Sarah has a little bit of a sore throat, and I like
Yeah.
to talk anyhow, so. We're gonna follow your questions primarily, but I think that the overview is, we held our town ask level at 0, increased that ask for the fiscal year that we're in now.
Right.
We don't feel like we can do that a second year in a row, and you'll see on the ask, we're asking a 4% increase from the town. We will continue to draw down our reserves, and a clarification, the language we use at the library, and I think language we try to communicate outside, is our active reserves, our working capital is sitting at Community Bank. We have an endowment at Vermont Community Foundation. We are on an auto distribution from that endowment of 5% a year, regardless of performance. We hope most times that it performs at 5% or more, but we're perfectly willing to say that it might not. So years ago, there were some questions like, what do you do with other money? Or do you have it? That's all out here to be seen. We use our other money. I think we are using our money strategically and sustainably. An interesting challenge or realization for Sarah as the chief financial officer, chief executive officer, library director, et cetera, is she's supposed to be losing money this year because we committed to draw down our active reserves as part of putting in more of our own equity, skin in the game. And I don't think we've lost enough money quite yet
Not
to be
quite
on,
yet,
but
no.
which is a great problem to have. But it's this interesting challenge of looking at financial statements as the years unfold and say, oh right, it's going to be okay the day we finally start losing some money this year. Likewise, in the FY20 budget, we plan on losing money within the fiscal year, and further drawing down our cash reserves. Some highlights, I think, just Hinesburg's Carpenter Cars Library is a little bit unique because we're a nonprofit. Most municipal libraries are part of a town department, and they have a very real need to have a Friends of the Library, where they can kind of park some fundraising to go beyond year to year. The Friends group in Hinesburg at one point was as little as one person, Earl Sue McNall, and then it had a few board members. And clearly, that's not the way Friends are supposed to be. It's supposed to be, board is different than a Friends group. Friends group has started recently.
Yes, new friends group.
A new Friends group. Friends of the Library, it started newly. Actively fundraising. Sarah's done a wonderful job with fundraising campaigns, presenting ourselves as a modern nonprofit who's using modern fundraising techniques and social engagement. We have monthly sustaining donors now, and are trying to grow that dramatically. We have, donation links on our website. Wonderful fall fundraising letter went out around Giving Tuesday and nonprofits, et cetera. So, with that, Sarah, anything, or certainly questions?
So I have just a question that, I noticed in the donations, you're expecting it to go up this year over what you've had so far, so you feel pretty confident on that? Or is it a
We
challenge?
have varying degrees of confidence within our cohort.
But I mean, you've had that amount before and then it went down
But
a
we
little
have,
bit.
yeah, so it can vary drastically depending on
Single donations.
single donors. So we're kind of aiming for the 15,000 because that's what we did actual in fiscal year 17 or
18.
18.
And then the only other thing was the employee benefits. Are they been dropped or they've been put somewhere else?
We put them, they really belong in wages and salaries.
Okay, so that's what.
So
they
that's
got.
where we
Yeah.
put them. And that's why, that's part of that huge, well, not huge.
Yeah, not
you know,
huge.
that hike, but
And just a little history, the previous library director was able to take it as a benefit, and Sarah is opting to take it as a cash in lieu of benefit, priced at the value of a single person's town coverage through the
yeah,
health
it's
policy.
based on
Yeah.
whatever folks here get.
In some ways, it's sort of I feel it's a little bit of a disadvantage for Sarah because it's all taxable.
Right.
And I'm encouraging her to figure out a way to make that not be taxable.
So are you getting rid of the Friends of the Library line and just having donations, or are you
Correct.
gonna?
Yes, and this is one of
Okay.
those challenges. You'll see a few line numbers that start to have some blanks on them, and at some point, when it's all blank, I'll hide them.
Yeah.
You know, but in the meantime, I've got a little bit of a recent history. Friends of the Library really, on that income account 3075, line 10, we only had activity there 1 year, and that was the year we dissolved Friends of the Library and absorbed their little savings account. Well, a few years later, Friends of the Library is coming alive again. We're not giving them any seed money by any means, but their accounting will be separate.
But then they will turn over their money and it will show
It's
up
not,
under
they're not
donations?
obligated to.
Oh, okay.
We hope they will,
That is part of their mission statement.
yeah, to support the library. But we're,
Friendly.
they're supposed to be friendly, but there's no dollar for commitment, nothing like that.
And they could choose to spend money aside from giving it to the library for the library to decide how to spend it.
Sure,
Yeah.
buy us some furniture or something.
Yeah,
or-
Correct.
Right, right.
Yes, exactly,
Yes.
yeah. So it wouldn't
But
even
it's
touch our
thinking-
budget, exactly, yes.
And just want to assure, this is, what's sort of beneficial is that this Friends of the Library is starting in 2018 with best practices from the Department of Libraries, from the IRS, et cetera, versus this vestige. Well, it's down to one person, then we had two people, and, you know, no, it's really doing it properly.
Well, I think Aaron said it, and I'll say it too. I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you know, the library came in and the data we had in front of us was not as complete as it is now. So it makes, you know, trying to fill in the blanks with whatever we might think go away, and now we have the data in front of us. So that's very helpful.
Well,
Yeah,
thank,
and also I would like to say that because you are a separate entity, you're coming to the town, but it's a separately warned article on the town warning. And so, you know, I have always felt that it's our responsibility to ask you to come. One is so that the public can see all of this information ahead of time as we're preparing the budget. But, you know, and we can ask questions basically on behalf of all the taxpayers. But I don't feel like it's our decision as a select board whether we approve or disapprove of your budget. It's really up to the voters. And, you know, our obligation is to scrutinize it really as a peer, but not as, like, we have authority over you. So,
But I want to assure you, we also view this opportunity as a test presentation to hear what some questions might be. We can put some answers right in our narrative in the town report, or further, you know, anticipate them at town meeting. So it works well for all parties.
I see your repairs and maintenance is back up considerably from last year. Is there anything specific?
Yes, that is because historically, one of our employees was also our cleaner, so it was in wages and salaries. It's now contracted out.
And I will clarify, though, also that although it's up from FY19, again, it's pretty consistent with what we actually spent in FY18.
Right, correct.
And FY18 did have some surprises. A lot of
We had some-
roof
Yeah.
HVAC.
HVAC. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have an engineer's report of planned capital needs, and we don't anticipate anything major. You know, we did the expensive parking lot a couple of years ago. The roof's in good shape, et cetera, et cetera. So in fact, if as you weed through all this, we are not proposing to set aside any additional deferred maintenance savings in fiscal year 20 because we think we'll have enough. The other thing, just I remind ourselves, and I remind any reader, on our income statement, our profit and loss, we show a net income of only $879. However, line 5170, depreciation expense, is $14,000. That's an accounting tool, but it didn't affect our cash flow. So that's how we ended up with a healthier checkbook at the end of the year than we did at the beginning of the year, although it looks like we didn't make much money. So it's been challenge with the lowercase c to pay attention to some activity inside our Vermont Community Foundation funds that generate tax reportable income that have nothing to do with our cash flow. Right. Depreciation, which has nothing to do with our cash flow. So again, we were pleasantly surprised, say, ooh, we were trying to spend down our reserves and they grew a little bit instead. And we didn't make much money. Oh, but we did, because 14,000 of that is depreciation, and that has nothing to do with cash flow.
Question about the facility itself. Is it too big, too small, just right? And going forward over the next 5, 10, 15 years, what do you see? And then how that affects staffing and hours,
Sure.
whatever those answers are.
Yeah. So we're a pretty good size right now. We do kind of have to weed our collection every year fairly significantly. So I think in the next probably 4 or 5 years we will get to a point, if our circulation numbers continue to be good, that we won't want to continue weeding as much, and we may want to grow a bit more. We do have that, we call it the life room.
Yep.
Or space C.
Yep.
That we currently rent to CVU. But that is a significant source of income for us. It's currently $10,500, hopefully $11,000-ish this year. So that is something that is kind of in the back of our minds, and we're considering for the future. I don't see hours changing hugely significantly anytime soon. Monday afternoons to me would be the next spot, and then we'd be open 10 to 7 every day, every weekday. But that would be adding 4 hours a week. And so that staffing significantly shouldn't change either a huge amount in the next 5 years. But we are adding 3 to 4 hours a week for youth programming in this budget. And because we're hearing from the town that there needs to be more after school programming, and so we want to make that happen for folks. So.
Is there opportunities for CVU kids to intern or people to volunteer, or how does that work? Because it seems like it's a neat place to work.
Sure, yeah. We do have, I think we have 8 or 9 volunteers right now. We had a CVU student. He has not shown up in the last 3 weeks, but we do run into that. But we would like to. That is part of our vision, is to have a volunteer fleet and get that a bit more organized in the future, and use volunteers a bit more strategically. Yeah.
How about a sidewalk from
Yes,
town to?
we would
yeah.
love a sidewalk.
I think that in
We support a
itself may,
sidewalk.
cause, an increase in
Right.
sort of after school.
Do you
Kids
know
could walk
that
directly
Nets
there.
kids walk down
Oh yeah.
to the library?
Okay.
It's just
2,
cool.
3, and 4-year-olds, they
Yeah.
walk down there in all types of weather. It's amazing. Yep. We see some CVU students, and we do. So with our after-school programming, there is a bus that will come from HCS to the library. So we're seeing more kids after school using that, and then we partnered with HCRC recently to do snacks after school on Tuesdays. So we're seeing a few more kids after school on Tuesdays as well.
And a direct connection to Crags would be great.
That would be
Yes.
great. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we would love to do.
Darn close.
We'd love to do programs up there. I think it'd be
Yeah.
such a neat opportunity.
Little missing link.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's good.
Any questions you anticipate on behalf of the voters? Maybe we'll address the salary notion and the contract change for the
Right.
same as what
Those
Yeah.
bigger
Yeah.
numbers. Yeah.
In the report, maybe.
Yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. Well, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
So the next item on the agenda is budget presentations from different departments. I'd like to say thank you, Renee. The documentation this year just is, a step above in previous years. I really like the spreadsheet. PDFs are great. So first, clerk, treasurer, delinquent tax. There must be a ton of people coming up here. We got the clerk coming up. We got the...
Yeah.
Just one, huh? Yeah.
I have split personality.
Yes.
Thank you for admitting that in public.
Yeah.
We have in our packet several spreadsheets, I think. Which one?
Different tabs.
Yeah, different tabs. And that one is
Clerk and treasurer will start.
Yeah.
5A. Yeah, 5A. Yep.
So the main change really for this year is that I'm proposing to just combine a couple of the sections since we've been doing the delinquent tax collector stuff as part of our office since 2003, I think. It doesn't really need to be a separate section of the budget. I don't ever anticipate it being separate from the clerk treasurer's office in the future. So basically I just there were only funds in a couple of lines in that budget anyway, so I just combined them into,
Looks like aside from wages, it was just ads, right?
yeah. And it used to have legal fees in there, but then we combined those all together last year, so.
I'll have to keep those actually in the budget though until they're completely zeroed out. So they'll have to physically stay in there, even though you're combining them into the town clerk's budget, they'll have to stay in there until.
For this year, you mean?
For at least 2 or 3 years until they completely zero out.
Okay.
In the history.
Okay, yeah, right, that's fine, yeah. Just functionally, that will
Right.
be the case. And then same thing with elections and BCA, because BCA, I mean, it's the same group of people, and, basically the duties are all intertwined with one another, so. And again, the BCA budget for the current year was $315, so it seemed like a logical thing to do. Other than that, in the town clerk's budget, the biggest change really is just upping the amount for the accounting assistant to reflect what the actual was for fiscal year 18, which was around 14,000. I was proposing to make it 15, just sort of assuming that there seemed to sort of constantly be more things added, and if we don't use it, we don't use it, and that's fine.
This is just a direct hourly payment.
And she essentially hasn't raised what she charges us, I don't think, since she started. And she also, I know, charges us less than she does her other clients, which is nice too. Yeah. Let's see. If there's anything.
Is that role there because it's there's not enough hours in the day for you and Cheryl, or is it more of a task or skill set that
Yeah.
that she brings to.
Yeah, she's,
that
I mean,
role.
she essentially is the same thing that Joe Chiaffi was before,
Got
which
it.
it's kind of, I mean, she is a CPA.
Sure.
I am not a CPA.
Sure.
And it's also just a good, functionally, I think, a good check and balance, which should be built in.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. And I mean, for the amount of money, she does, I think, a really excellent job with what she does. She provides a very valuable service for us, so.
Buys you lunch every now and then.
Or vice versa. Let's see.
Is there anything coming? I mean, we hear a lot about elections and new systems or any of that. Is there anything coming down the pike that, you know?
In terms of elections?
Yeah.
Like
It's-
security?
Yeah, those kind of things. Or are we
not-
in good shape because of the system we have?
I think we are in good
'Cause
shape.
we have paper ballots.
Yeah,
right?
we have the paper ballots. And the state actually did implement a whole new statewide system about 2 or 3 years ago that we're using now, and it's really good. And as we all probably read, that there was an attempted hack on their system, which was unsuccessful, so that's good. So I don't anticipate any big changes in that regard.
You've zeroed out the land record supply line.
Meaning she just kept it this, oh no, you did
No.
too. You don't have anything.
You don't have
Oh.
any request in there.
Whoops. That must have been an error on my part. Whoops. Because I think I do have it on the first sheet that I sent Renee. Let me see. Which was my, I actually had, I had 2750 in there instead of 3,000. Yeah.
And what about, well, we're not looking at income, but this is a little bit off topic, but I did have a question about dog licenses and whether that fee is established by you or by state statute, or what we could.
About whether or not, you mean raising it?
What we charge for licenses,
Uh-huh,
yeah.
yeah. I think that it's established by either the state has guidelines, but then you can,
okay.
as a town, you can kind of do.
So someone suggested that we add something to that so that we could put some way of people disposing of their dog waste and having someone pick up garbage cans of dog waste around town, and that we could fund it with an addition on the dog license fee. So that was an idea, yeah. So, just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, a lot of, I know Burlington charges a lot more, and South Burlington also. They charge like $30 or $40, I think, exactly for that reason. Because they obviously have a lot of dogs and a lot of dog waste, so.
I think South Burlington also charges for chickens, just in case you You at least have to register them.
And so if you notice in her salary line, well, it looks like it's an increase. She just moved, as she explained, she just moved the delinquent tax collector salary. So it has, there's not an adjustment reflected, like, you know, if you guys make adjustments to the salary lines,
Right.
that's not
They would,
reflected in
and
there.
if we did that, that would be distributed across the board, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not in there.
It's not in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so any other questions? Thank you for catching that mistake on my part. The office supplies, shows an increase of $500. That's, again, to reflect fiscal year 18's actual. Other than that, there's not much of a change.
Well, but dues, meetings, and subscriptions, that's like not, there's zeros in that, and the print, bind, and micro.
Yeah, print, bind, and microfilm, we use the reserve funds for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so, some of these lines really, I try to eliminate them once there's nothing that's happened in them for a while. But because we spend money in that one, it's not going to disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like this is always confusing when we're doing the budget, because this should be what we're spending, and then it's offset by what the income is from different things. So,
Right.
yeah.
And then as far as we want to move on to the elections budget. I am, even though we typically haven't really spent much in the elections salaries line, you can see fiscal year 18, well, maybe you can't see it, but it was $240. I am proposing to leave that at 1,000 because I might actually try to get a couple people in just to help with the early voting. It's really, it's just crazy. And so, I can get potentially somebody like even Cheryl, who may have retired by then, but she might be willing to come back in and do some hours for us, so.
And that would be like collecting them all and doing something or helping
No,
people?
basically, helping during the last 2 weeks and of the before an election. Typically for town meeting, it's not a big deal, except that a year from now, it's going to be the presidential primary. So that's going to be a really busy time. And it's just really hard to get anything done because you just have a constant stream of people coming in, so.
And you're not helping them fill them out, you're just helping them.
Right, yeah. I'm not going around and picking them up either.
Right. But interesting that would start to take a lot more time, which it makes sense,
Mm-hmm. So, any other questions?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming tonight.
All right. Did you get my email today about the petition?
I did. Thank
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
you. I'll have that done tonight.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Next item on the agenda, recreation budget. And this is, Tom, you worked on this one? Yeah.
Five feet.
Oh, okay.
And,
Hello.
and we have this one in our packet. Let's see. Is it 5B? Maybe.
It's 5B.
Yeah.
So there's two things under 5B. There's the budget memo and then the actual budget.
I was thinking about it while I was sitting here. I thought, how could we have differentiated, and why didn't you bring your microphone and maybe sing a little bit and your guitar?
Well, I didn't know what key you sang in.
You know what, Ronnie, here's another opportunity next time. Same time, same place. There you go, write that down.
135.
So there are 3 changes with this year's recreation budget that I wanted to highlight. It's a little different. The first is that the salary and wages, I was advised to move the wages for Tom Giroux, who's doing the mowing and the lining at the Bissonnette Recreation Area. So we moved his salary for that mowing and for that position. So it was in the a recreation facility maintenance, because prior to that, we have wall mowing. We still have wall mowing the town hall field.
Some of them, though, yeah.
Right, some of the mowing. So that's one change with this budget that you'll notice.
And that's because Tom isn't a separate contractor.
Right,
He's working for the town
Right.
when he
Right.
does
This is
that.
under
Yeah?
our,
right.
Okay.
So so little change there. We still have the wall mowing for the town hall field in the recreation facility maintenance line item. And then the other change is adding a new line item, the equipment maintenance line item, allowing us to track, with the purchase of the new mower, which was purchased with the funds from the Quadra concert
Yeah.
from last year. which was pretty amazing. Brand new Hustler mower, which
Is that the one at the town garage? Yes.
it is. So the equipment maintenance line item that's new will better allow us to track the gas and the maintenance associated with that machine. It's kind of our first machine for the new recreation area and the entire area. And let's see. So therefore, the recreation facility maintenance line item seems a little lower this year. So we took Tom's salary out of that, and we'll utilize, for the purchase of perhaps another set of goals, possible field hockey goals in the capital transfer line item. So for possible, we're still kind of emerging a little bit with the recreation area. We got got our feet wet this fall, utilizing the first complete.
Your feet wet, though.
That's true, we did not, that's the wrong term.
Yeah.
We were high and dry. Just to get a feel for the mowing and the
Yeah.
maintenance.
So I imagine this year it'll really, we'll have a
It'll pick
really
up.
good idea on, because obviously mowing a little more, and you already did some last year. but
Right.
We'll know really closer what it takes.
And we were really fortunate with this fall, the seeding, the grading and the seeding, we were able to push out of the summer because it was so dry this summer. We were so fortunate to have that work done this fall, have some rain, a little warmth. I think that second field was mowed several times and it's coming in very nicely. So that'll give us a much better idea of what we'll be spending and what the timeline looks like. Earlier in the spring, and when it starts to warm up, you have to mow it a little more, and then you kind of back it off a little bit in the summer. And I think we're really fortunate to have Tom Giroux, who's taking such incredible care. He's watching that grass and really, is taking a lot of pride in it. So I think we're really fortunate to have someone that's so mindful. And I'm not taking away from Wall, but I
No.
think it's just a different relationship in that regard. So, the other items, like supplies and postage are pretty similar. Professional development and the printing and ads are all, pretty similar to the last few years. And I didn't feel the need to increase the youth sports and the adult programming. We're kind of holding steady. The events and performances is offset by a $2,000 donation, or close to that, between Waitsfield, Champlain Valley Telecom and Wall, which is great. And then to note that the July 4th line item, is offset by a $5,000 donation from the HBPA, which is, pretty much covered by the annual golf tournament in June, which is, I think this is the second or third year that they've done it. At least the second.
And that HPPA is actually individual people
Right.
right here in town who are
That's
giving
right.
the dollars, which is a significant.
But collectively doing, and, not
Yeah.
only are they doing a fundraiser, it's a great community event, and it's gaining some momentum. So again, we've got a lot of this, people getting involved, the fundraising efforts, and, quite frankly, 2018 with this Bissonnette Recreation Area, Tom and Air and the Recreation Commission has done a tremendous job on this project, along with the community members. So many pieces, but there's been a lot of momentum this year, so that feels good. Let's see, the capital transfer, we're keeping the same $5,000, and then the software as well. So, not,
Do we need more than 5,000 for the capital transfer in terms of replacement of that piece of equipment?
Not at this time.
Oh, okay, what did that piece of equipment cost?
13,000.
Okay. So, it would become a capital expense.
So that's
It would.
something that we'll put into So if you look on the lower tabs, on the recreation budget, so there's the capital items. These are the things that are currently listed in our narrative. We'll want to add that mower to
Yeah.
that, so I just
Yeah.
need to get like a description of it and what, sort of an expected life and all of that. Those things could be added.
Thank you. I was like, I can't read it.
And at some point, I mean, in the Bissonnet fields, there's, a long-term plan to have some kind of a building there maybe, and that's something you might just put a little capital in so that if you, I don't know, got a grant or a big donation, you can,
Yeah,
have something to work
That's not
on.
necessarily long-term.
Okay, yeah.
hopefully it's shorter
Yeah.
term.
Well,
than
if it's
that.
short term, then it definitely needs to be in the capital budget.
Well, that's what the 5,000 is in there for.
Okay,
Okay, well, it said, the capital budget says, goals and shed.
well,
You
I
know,
think that's
so-
just what, but if,
Yeah.
if
Just
you look, when you
ideas
look at
for-
this, the capital transfer has been 5,000, and we've been
Right.
doing that for a long
Right,
time. And so let's see. Okay, if you look on, get back to our budget.
so what are you thinking, just roughly on time frame?
For a building?
Yeah,
Spring.
okay,
Short term.
Yep.
yeah, okay,
Rough.
all right.
Well, there's another quadra concert in the works
Right.
for Friday, January 4th.
Yeah,
And then there's talk of, and then,
April Calcutta.
that's right. The
Yeah,
Cal-
but what's the building?
We don't know exactly yet. We're working on it though.
to store goals,
Is it
the
for storage
mower.
shed, or is it a concession
Possible.
stand and bathrooms and, it'd be good to,
Well, it's going to start as storage,
okay.
and we really don't have the ability to put bathrooms in yet. That's that's more the long term.
Right.
Right, but that's why I think it is important that we get something established in the capital budget so people can see what we're working towards and whether it's fundraising that pays for it or it's taxpayer dollars.
or a combination.
A combination, we should,
So in the capital budget currently is a storage
Yeah.
shed.
Yeah.
It says the plans for the Bissonnet Fields include a multi-purpose building with a storage component. And so
Sort of like
instead
a
of,
pavilion kind of a thing, maybe.
It
Maybe
could
that's
potentially have a
storage
pavilion
den or something.
on it. There's just not a lot of space there.
Yeah.
A lot less than I was envisioning. It's,
Right.
I mean,
so
it's, yeah, not real big, but.
I do appreciate that you have all the Bissonnet information too, the funds and all that, so that's,
Yeah.
that's, again, another case where, just by putting it there, it eliminates questions like,
Yeah.
how much is there, and where's it
Yeah.
going, and that kind of thing, so that's great.
added that
Yeah.
in most of the budgets, just so you can have that. Those are questions that you guys tend to ask, so.
Yeah.
Reserve.
Then the line at the end of what that right, the 56,278 bottom right.
Yeah.
That's going to be reduced by about $27,000 in the fences that just got invoiced this week. So we got the project is basically done, and we still have $30,000.
Okay.
And we got it, and I received a donation today. I mean, the donations are,
Yeah.
they do usually come at the end of the year, but I mean, literally today, I opened up a check and
Yeah.
went, wow. So it's incredible. So,
Great. Well, it's been, again, another great example of how this town comes together. Just
true.
have information on the library with the same thing, so.
Right.
And we're also working on, Kyle Boswick will be really the mind behind the advertising aspect. Because the goal really is to have that facility be self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Between advertising and continued fundraising is, however long that goes.
Have Rodney singing and performing
Rodney
for the
can sing.
parents.
He's getting big now, so.
Yeah.
Yikes.
All right. Are there any
where's,
other-
what tab is that? Ron?
Which one?
That's down,
If you look below in the
you
Excel
might have to,
spreadsheet of
you
the
might have to
budget.
open it into Excel. Depends on how it opens.
Okay. And then there should be 4 tabs at the bottom, so
Oh, I see.
What
Okay,
Jen
Each-
sent
got
me.
it,
yeah.
got it, got it, got it.
So she
Each-
filled in the rec thing, and then I've added tabs
Yeah.
to.
Yeah,
So
that
they-
tab
supporting
thing is,
information.
Yeah, they all have some tabs there
Yeah.
with additional
That's what
information.
Phil was saying at the beginning.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's impressive people that much.
Yeah. All right, are there more? I'm just trying to, I don't want to squelch any questions or comments, but just trying to keep us on time. So
your tickets
it's
online.
good, thanks.
Yes, thank you. Do
Yeah.
that plug.
Yeah.
Tickets
Buy
are
your tickets
online.
online.
Yeah,
You can
right,
buy them
through
at
the
the
rec.
Jiffy or hinesburgrec.com.
We'll get that at the end of the show, too.
Okay,
Better to do it now, more people are watching.
There you go.
that's right.
Multiple plugs.
Don't miss
All
out.
right.
Thank you.
All right,
you,
thanks,
guys.
yeah. All right, next item is the police budget, and Mary Lee, I think you worked with Frank and his team.
You know, we should mention one thing about the rec before Jen leaves, is we're only really seeing here the expenditure side, not the
Right.
revenue side,
Good
which
point.
is another one of those departments that makes most of their
Yeah.
money back.
Right.
I think there were comments,
programming.
yeah, there were some comments in there that noted which
the
of those
memo.
lines they tend to be self-sustaining.
That's something we see every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
See if I can get out of this spreadsheet now. There we go. Uh-oh. Now I gotta find it. Okay. Which number are we on?
I see.
All right, maybe kind of go over the highlights, is that?
Well, I'm rather pleased since this is significantly different than the budget we presented last year. So just,
And
The-
just a sort of a recap, so last year we, I'll say adjusted salaries just a little bit, and that was I thought that was a 2 or 3 year.
well, you allowed us to go to a pay scale, which
Yes,
is something that we've
that's
been
right.
trying to
Yep.
get for years and years and years. And so it was approved and we raised the salaries commensurate with what we wanted. This year, all we're doing is we're trying to follow up with the second year, which would be one officer is hitting his fifth year, so that's a 5% increase. Everybody else a 3%. And then the chief's salary, I would recommend would go down because it's, in the 6 years I've been here, I've only gotten cost of living increases. So until last year, when you guys bumped it up, I think that it's reasonable that it go down a little bit for whatever chief replaces me. And then that'll allow some leeway to give that person raises.
Do you think that's
Reasonable?
reasonable in terms of applicants and what we're looking for?
I think it is.
Okay.
And a starting salary, I think it's very reasonable. And the other thing that happened, thanks Renee's assistance and all of that, something we've been trying to do since I've been in this town, is get a fixed dispatch rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
Well,
that just
that's-
came in, huh?
That's thanks to also a new town manager in Shelburne. But that,
Did he give a rationale of why he could do that, or?
well, he could do it because it makes sense. And it's made sense all the years. Shelburne has a fixed they've got
I know.
a cost of X amount of employees, of building radios and that. All you kind of have to do is divide the number of calls from last year, you pay for that budget, and then you adjust it the next year. So who knows what it may be next year. But what I'm hoping is if our call volume goes down a little bit or whatever, that we can actually negotiate a little bit lower. But, so anyway, for at least 1 year, we're in good shape. I couldn't be happier because it's like I said, this has been the one thing that's driven me nuts since I've been here.
Is there any sense that the public, that residents are understanding the difference between calling 911 and calling your office?
You kind of get the same people. The ones that call 911 are generally the ones that don't know our phone number. And I think we still need to maintain. I still think that,
Oh, yeah.
okay, just because it doesn't cost any money for earning more, I still think what we want to do is keep our call volume down for the next year.
Right, but I mean, I think any effort we can make to
absolutely.
make residents aware of when it's appropriate to just call the office.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then the
And
other.
we don't want to discourage people from dial 911, but oftentimes
No,
it
absolutely.
doesn't warrant it,
They're
right?
doing it because they just don't know our
Yeah.
phone number.
Yeah.
What percentage of calls would you say that is? Non-emergency calls that go through 911?
Well, Doug could have told us to the call.
Should check his last report, probably.
It just depends, because if you have to have an officer now, you're gonna generally call 911, even regardless of you wanna talk to somebody now.
Because it might not be, there's nobody answering the phone.
There's nobody answering the phone, however, our message does say that all you know, to call, to hit 1 and it'll go through to Shelburne Dispatch. Shelburne doesn't charge us for all the calls. If we have a citizen that calls and wants to talk to somebody, we're not going to get a charge on that because they're not really punching a case for it. It's the one where, okay, now you're dispatched out to Trees Down or something like that. Those are the ones that cost us. So. Now, the other thing we want to start doing is money aside for, because the things that, even though they're not as expensive as fire department, SCBA's and things like that, our computers are roughly $5,000 for the car. We have cameras in the cars. We have radios. The reason why we didn't have to pay for our last set of radios is the FCC changed the rules, and we had to change radios. So they made available grants. So that saved us a considerable amount of money. Homeland Security has provided money for us to buy computers, and then also the town bought our cameras except for a certain amount. So there's a point when these are things that we have to replace eventually. So, but for example, we got a grant for 2 of our bulletproof vests, so we were able to not spend $2,000 of the town's money. So we will the department will continue to do grants when we can. But, so we just need.
So at this point, all we have are for the vehicles, just the lease costs in the capital.
Right.
So, it might be appropriate to put a little there, even if it's just, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000.
You guys had talked about making a mobile equipment fund. What did you want that to replace? So here, if you look up on the screen now, it's in the tabs, everything, are the things that are currently in our capital narrative under police.
Video cameras.
So I think we talked about maybe combining that mobile data terminals as well as the.
Computers, cameras, and radios.
So all
Right.
3 of those things, we
Could just-
might want to add something there that, because you don't know, 1 year it might be a computer, the next year it might be 2.
That's why we were thinking about
These-
whatever title you make it
Yeah,
could.
give some flexibility.
Right.
But we know there'll be some point where even if something breaks or,
Mobile technology.
gets stolen, let's say it gets
Right.
stolen.
Mobile equipment, I think
Ooh.
Mobile Technology Fund or something, we had a name.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
different than the car.
So that might, at least we can make that
Yeah,
and then decide whether we put a little in there.
right.
But see, something else too is, that was brought up is cutting a set of stairs through to go upstairs in our building. And we store files and things up there. It's not a real use. But Missy had talked about, Missy doesn't have any storage place. So that's possibly a good use of the upstairs if we had a safer way to get up. Because right now, it's kind of like a balancing act of trying to get up those stairs, those pull-down stairs. But that's something for the future we want to consider. And whether or not that's impact fees or whatever.
Could be, I suppose, but, yeah.
Well, yeah, it would seem like a capital expense, for the building, whether it's that, whether it's adding solar,
Yeah, yeah.
something like that, yeah.
And so if you look at your bottom tabs, it shows the impact fee balance.
Yeah, not a lot there.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
So we had, last year, when we, on the revenue side, we decided to use 23,000.
Right.
Of what was the balance at the time.
Toward the
to
cost
apply
of
towards
this.
the debt service of the police station.
Yeah.
However, when they did that transfer, they just transferred the balance at the time, which it doesn't matter either way, it's supposed to go to the building. So they transferred 26,485.32 when they made that transfer this year, which would leave just a let's see, 338.70 as the balance. If we wanted to do just the 23,000 to offset the current year's debt service, then we would still have a balance of 3,824.02.
I see.
So, I mean, either way, it
Yeah.
really
But that,
doesn't matter.
I
It's
mean,
just a-
you know, that could grow a little bit over time, so.
It could.
Yeah.
The way that's set up is, for the police, it's based on number of bedrooms, and there's a formula if you
Okay.
look in the impact fee ordinance.
Okay.
So that's something that I think it might be worth our time to have revisited a little bit too. Just how that was set up and the formulas, and do they still make sense? So I think it'd be worth checking
Yeah.
into, to have someone kind of look at our impact fee ordinance and make sure it still makes sense.
Yeah, so I think it would be good to at least have a capital line in there for equipment or, you know, whatever we call it, technical support equipment, boom, 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 those three things. And then we can decide,
And the building.
yeah, and the building,
and a-
I
and a,
think,
capital line for building.
yeah. Perhaps each building should have something
Yeah.
like that, so
Yeah.
that, you know, hey, we're gonna need a new roof in 5 years. Let's
Right.
start
No, we have a
putting
really
something.
expensive metal roof that should last throughout my lifetime.
Yes.
Mine's over 100 years old.
It's okay, we're good.
Are there any other questions, or Marilee, anything you wanted to say, or?
Thank you, Marilee, for your support on this. That was very nice. Okay,
Yeah, I think it looks good. Thanks.
thank you very much.
So that, the dispatch thing is colored yellow, but that'll go away, because that's gonna be the actual now?
Yeah, I just highlighted it
Okay,
because
just
it ties
just-
into
yeah.
the narrative. So
Right, I
just
got ya.
highlighted the narrative
Yeah.
in that section too. 'Cause it's an update from when
Oh, I
when
see,
he last
yes.
submitted it.
Yeah, on the other sheet,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So next item is fire. They make you come up?
Good evening.
Yeah.
We can get more chairs.
I'm sure they'll chime in.
They always have.
So if you see, there's a lot of attachments to the fire.
Yeah, this one was, I won't say confusing, but there was a lot to it.
There's a lot to
I think a lot of moving parts.
Yes, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think one thing you guys had been asking for and was information about the association, and so
Yes,
they said they would
Yeah.
get all of that together, and they did, and so you have that in your
Yeah.
packet as well.
that's helpful.
You have their budget, and then they have been doing their own sort of capital planning, and so there's some information regarding that. In their sheet, so on your tabs, on your budget has what is existing in the capital narrative,
Okay,
but in their narrative that they provided separately, lists their items that they're suggesting being
I think
Put.
we tried to weed out some of the things that have been paid for and
Yeah, so this
kind of
is
been carried for a while and tried to simplify it for everybody to
5D, right?
see better.
Is their
So
narrative.
5D
Yeah.
is, they're all 5Ds, so fire department.
Oh,
Anything with
okay.
5D is
Okay,
associated with the
gotcha.
fire department.
Yeah. So this sheet, narrative and revised capital plan from
Yeah. Yeah.
HFD.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we want to go through it, I think going through this would be good, because there's a lot of sort of,
It's a
I'll say
big
new things or
right,
some.
it's a big
it's a
transitional
transition.
time,
Yeah,
really, come
and,
staring us in the future, so.
So that might be a good spot to start, just go
Yep.
over that narrative and, what's it saying?
Yeah, I think really, what we tried to accomplish because of the information that we got from St. Mike's a couple weeks ago that around 2020, I'm hoping they'll stretch it a year, but they have to go back to their board of directors that they'll discontinue ambulance service to Hinesburg then because they're stretched too thin. As are all the ambulance services around us now. 2020, yeah.
And are there?
I don't know if it's January or
Yeah,
December,
right.
so.
Are there other towns they do like Hinesburg?
Yeah, they cover Winooski and Colchester, they back up a number, so the matrix for this ambulance district goes about 8 or 9 layers deep. So fairly common to get into the 6th and 7th layer of backup ambulances because everybody's so busy. Burlington, we had, I've gotten one of their chiefs to come help us on some capital planning and really future planning. And he said it's not uncommon for at a single time to have 5 different ambulance services in their city. So, which is Colchester, South Burlington, St. Mike's, all in there at once, just covering their calls, And one of the things which he talked about, of course, he's well informed, I guess is the best way to put it. So, is that we're not very far from having that matrix failure, meaning we're outside, so we could be at the point of Virgin's coming here. Virgin's now goes to Starksboro. I mean, it's amazing how far the ambulances are traveling now because there's so many ambulances in service going to calls all the time. So, and that's one of the reasons why St. Mike's is looked at that. Their number they try to operate around is 2,500 calls a year because that's where they feel they can give their students the best volunteer experience. Once you get over that number, then you have to go to 3 ambulances and it just becomes they don't have room in their station for 3 and it's a really cascading effect. So they're at 2,500 now, but they're trying to just, they've been with us since '69, so they're just trying to give us the heads up that's,
Okay.
they're doing their best, but something's got to give, and I guess we're it, so.
So is that a definite, you're saying, or is that a probable?
Well, it's the 2020 is near definite, maybe 2021.
But it's coming to an end.
But it is, worst case 2020, best case 2021.
So we have some options, and we always have a number of options.
Yep.
One of the options that I think we've been talking about is our own ambulance service
Yeah.
at some point.
And truthfully, it will be definitely a stretch for that date. Because there's a lot of things that have to be in place before, you do take on an ambulance service, because the last thing you want to do is go into service and then not be in service
Yeah.
because you don't have the personnel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like the
Yeah.
equipment is the
Yeah.
least of our concerns.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
'cause that's
absolutely,
you
absolutely the
just
least of it.
pull the
You know,
trigger and
it's
you have
people,
the equipment.
it's people.
Yeah.
You know,
Alright,
many of
so-
the, a lot of the ambulance services around us have paid people and, in our, we aren't there to really give you that piece yet, but, we're looking at basically applying for a SAFER grant, which is a federal grant, which would give you an employee for 3 years. It's kind of like the COPS grant where
Yeah.
they'll pay for 3 years and you have to pick them up after that. You know, trying to figure out the timing for all that. You know, so you've got a paid piece, which we've known for a long time. Even if this hadn't come about, we would have to have a paid person because, you know, with the calls that the police department are receiving now, you know, we never went a year missing calls. In the last couple of years, we've been missing 3 and 4 and 5 calls. So, and it's just a matter of, you know, the police department being busy and we just not being available, having anybody around. And it's daytime. Nighttime is never an issue because we have all the volunteers around at night. And, you know, it's a huge challenge. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And, you know, we've looked at, you know, maybe there's an interim of having other ambulance services do it, but the problem is the collapsing of that matrix. You know, like now, so Shelburne runs a lot to their elderly housing thing, so Charlotte is going a lot to take their calls, which then doesn't give it to us. So then, and it happens all the way around us. And Williston, they're adding another ambulance, full-time staffed ambulance because they're having to call so much backup.
But doesn't
So,
that kind of point to that there's the opportunity for
Right.
greater coordination?
well,
I mean, it's coordinated now, but there's
Right.
not any strategic plan for the
Well, that's
best
what
use of our
that's what the
resources.
matrix is all about. Matrix is about the best strategic plan for this whole ambulance district, for backup
We're
ambulances.
talking about an
and-
ambulance district,
Right.
not
Right.
Virgins,
Right.
Williston,
Well,
St. Mike's.
they're all part of it.
Right,
yeah,
they're part of
yeah. Mm-hmm.
it, but I mean, it seems like the issue of regional dispatch,
Right.
you know, fell apart. But every time we talk about it, seems like there's the opportunity to think about this
Oh,
in a
absolutely.
more holistic
And, yeah,
way.
and that's exactly what we're trying to do. And, you know, and surprisingly, it is falling from the south to us. So Stocksboro's interested, if we get an ambulance, Stocksboro's interested in having us cover them for
But it
a
still
part
is
of the
Hinesburg
town.
covering Stocksboro.
Correct, yeah, and which is part of that big matrix because they don't get the ambulances they need. So they're actually having Middlebury come to Stocksboro and Virgin. So, it's a huge failure point, I guess, is the way to best describe it. And, I mean, you've got the best EMS minds state on down trying to figure out how to do it a better model. We're lucky because everybody that might come here, other than South Burlington, is all dispatched out of Shelburne, all the ambulances. So they know right off quick who's available. So, which is a big plus for all of us. And, we're not ready to be there. I mean, that's the reality of it. We're not ready to be there, but, we've got to start getting ready to be there because we're not going to have a choice, The choice is patient care. Give it quality or don't give it quality, and, and I can proudly say that we're giving service and saving lives. So it's, it's something that, we've known has been coming for a long, long time. And, over my 40 years here in Hinesburg, we've hit those milestones where we've had to change what we really do. And, that first line really sums it up. We used to be a fire department that did EMS.
Right.
We're not anymore. We're an EMS department that does fire calls.
Occasionally puts out a
Right,
fire.
yeah, and if you look at the number of times last year, we had 2 calls, which 5 years ago, we would have 1 simultaneous call. Last year, we had 93 times that there were 2 calls at once, And that kind of drove us to like so we have our Med 100. So our EMS that's our primary EMS truck. So now on engine 3, we have a lot of the backup equipment to make that the next EMS truck out the door, because we need a second one. And now we've had, I think, 3 this year of 3 calls at once. So, again, fortunately, we've got the police department, which is helping tremendously. And, it's a load on everybody, and we just, it's a big planning thing that we need to deal with. And, like I say, we brought in, one of the chiefs from Burlington, and he's had a lot of comments and given us some good direction. And, we're looking to, craft up a plan where we'll be reaching out to the community to see what they want,
Yeah.
That's huge for us. It's huge for the community, because, we don't want to go down the path of providing something nobody wants. You can't waste the money that way.
Yeah.
And, it's been hard, truthfully, it's been a huge challenge for me to look at this. And, the rest of the guys, I mean, we've spent a lot of hours, and we're gonna have a lot of hours in front of us to get ready for that.
Come up with a plan that
Right,
works. Yeah.
And, I put that together, trying to simplify seeing, what the future looks like. I can't say it's doom and gloom. It's, it's expensive at some scale. Fortunately, over the years, we've been planning ahead so that, we are staggering the equipment down through, so we're not, like some towns are buying 2 and 3 fire trucks a year, and then because they have so much rolling stock, they have to do it again 3-4 years later. So they have these huge bond payments that, which we've tried very hard not to do that. If you look at my plan was, which hopefully it works out that way, is when the engine 1 lease is done, we'll move over to engine 3, do that one. We'll move over to engine 2 down the road. The ambulances, I guess, I see that as really a separate undertaking for funding, because it does generate a fair amount of revenue. Does it fully sustain itself? We've talked a lot to Leslie at St. Mike's about their reimbursement rates. Their reimbursement, 2,500 calls, they bring in about $750,000 a year. Their reimbursement rate is somewhere between 60 and 70%. A lot of the money, the way that money is generated, is it's more mileage, which is kind of contrary to what you think. But
Yeah.
so they actually get fair
More
amount.
money if they come to Hinesburg.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's more money if they come to Hinesburg, because the mileage is much better. Right. Yeah. So, it's something we've got to dive into. We've started that dive, and
Like what the income would be.
yeah, exactly. Because you've got income, you've got expense, and you've got to have a facility, because you got to house them, right?
We're coming. Where do you live now?
We're fortunate that we do have that first ambulance will be donated whenever if we get to the point where we want the first ambulance, it'll be donated, as he would say. Hopefully he's still alive so he can donate it. So, and he may be the first call. So, but it's a tremendous jump start, I guess, for the program, if that's the way we go. And I think that's a caveat
But
with
it would
it.
probably be double that in terms of having staff for it.
Well, you go one, because you have to have one EMT on the truck. Wow. You have to have one certified EMS person in the back, and you can have firemen drive in the front, or whoever is CPR certified. So that gets you out the door. So, that's where that daytime person would come in, because that's the back person.
Right. Right.
And, we envision it'll be most of the time firefighters driving the ambulance, just as a normal function for them. It's not something special. we're a little bit different, I would say, than a lot of ambulance services that, you know, the EMS and the fire it's one. It's not two separate things, because there are services that don't have good relationships with. They're separate, but they're separate, but they're in the same building. Shelburne is separate. Two different buildings, two different whole groups of people. Some cross back and forth, but Richmond's separate. Yep. So I mean, there's tons of models out there.
Yeah.
I think we're lucky because it is part of the fire department.
Yeah, no, I think that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That would
So, you know, we have a lot of challenges in front of us. I guess that's my punchline for the
Yeah.
capital plan, and definitely have to be revised.
I would push back on that. There's a lot of opportunities here too.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
hearing
Yes.
what you're describing here. I mean, this is,
Right.
for better or for worse,
Right.
a service that is only increasing in demand, and we
Yeah,
could-
and I'd mentioned before that with the potential BlackRock, I started putting feelers out to Williston to see, when you had one of those buildings, what did it do to calls? And Chief said, well, 150 to 200 calls a year just on that building, because you've got CO alarms, you've got cooking alarm, smoke alarms, but that's cooking, and then the medical calls.
Yeah, falls and whatever.
Right. So I mean, we're right now. Well, how many months are into the year? Fiscal year. We're at two. I don't know. What are we at? 230s.
Yeah, roughly around
230.
240 calls. since
Right.
July
Already since July 1, which that equates to a lot of calls. And if you try and if you double it, we're going to be in the 450, 500 range. Then the day that we start getting the elderly facilities, it's going to really put a load that today we couldn't handle. I mean, it's just, and the reality is today, none of the ambulance services around us could handle it either. Because they have the same thing happen.
Where they're, so that number's not
Right.
bringing an ambulance each time, but
For calendar 2018, we're going to be at about 400 EMS calls, and you figure 60% transport.
60%, okay, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
200 to 300 transports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you break it down, in terms
Oh,
of,
yeah.
talk to
400,
Williston?
400, for instance.
I mean, can you extrapolate from the number of calls you get at Kelly's Field?
Yeah. I mean, it probably runs pretty close. Surprisingly, we get a lot of calls at Kelly Fields.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm saying we
So,
have our own.
We have our own
knowledge,
case of
our own
it,
case that we can look
right?
at,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if BlackRock kind of goes the 55 and older like it's supposed to be, maybe we wouldn't quite see that impact because it's a little younger, younger occupation of the
Well, it's
building.
gonna-
But-
He said he would designate it 55 and older, but
Right.
it's 65 and older who moves in. Those
Right.
are the,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yep.
the group that's
So if
attracted to
anything,
that
it may
house.
not be
Except for
as
some places have
high
had to
as it
reduce
will
it because they
eventually
weren't
get.
getting-
Right. Yeah. And
Well, I'm just saying what Ben Avery
right.
said.
Yeah, and as we we're bound to get more. I
Yeah.
mean, we need more. So.
So can I just ask
Yeah,
the facility, what's the vision there? What are you thinking?
Well, as we've talked about, I mean, it's no secret that we've been, we've looked at where we are, and we've spent a lot of money getting designs there, and we just can't physically fit what we need on that property. And one of the huge drawbacks is 116, obviously, and to do it, we could do it, yes, because we'd have to build out back. We'd have to go towards Creekside. Because of facilities and the roof angles, and we've got a lot of work that would need to be done, which we did get an estimate for, but I won't share yet because we don't look at it. But it would, we know just adding the small 2-bay addition as you face it to the left towards the pump station, that's $2 million. Just to add that, because they have to go back in and retrofit so much of the building because it's not capable of having a second roof over the top of the original roof, so they have to go and do a lot of work. And, there's quite a few as I think Andrea was on it, and I'm not sure who else, when they were doing the police station, the public safety design is different. It has to be, it's a higher level of safety, I guess. You know, so you have, like, the roofs are tied down differently than just an average house. So, you know, all that would have to be done. So, you know, it's a very expensive proposition going forward.
So it's possible at this point with the estimates you have, for the amount of money you get, you put in, you're not gonna get
Right.
as much out.
Yep,
Flexibility
yeah,
or.
it would be still limited in service time too. So, you know, we've been looking at the tailhook building. We've done a lot of work, you know. We kind of wanted to let the highway garage get done and completed, you know, because there was no doubt they needed a facility.
You
know?
could fit it.
Right, yeah. And, you know, we take that same model and build it someplace down here. That'd be great for us, but, you know, we feel that if we can do it at the tailhook facility, you know, it's double the space that we have now. It's off the road, has a huge lot for our parking issues, you know, and it gets us 2 ways out versus 1 way out, really, 116. So, you know, is that the only viable one? No, we're looking at trying to find other property, you know, but we know.
Is there a scenario where the existing stays just ambulance and fire moves elsewhere? Or does everything need to be together?
No, well, ideally, yes, just because it's so commingled.
Yep.
It'd be a little hard to break it apart.
Yeah.
I think if we end up doing an ambulance sooner than the building,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to do that, which, you know, we've learned from experience that when you separate your vehicles go into disrepair quicker.
Yeah.
Because they don't get the attention. The divorced ones don't get the attention that they should get. So, you know, so we're looking at, you know, with our consultant, he's, you know, brought a lot of great ideas to the table, you know, finding other alternatives, other sites that we could build. You know, there's not really any buildings per se right in the core. One of the reasons why we're trying to stay in the core, which we're trying to move off a little bit over there, is the ISO rating, because that reflects a lot on the location.
If you
So,
were to move on the outskirts of town,
right,
everybody's really
people's
much-
insurance is gonna go up. Yeah, so I mean, you know, and it, you know, probably a house, an average house would go up a couple $100 a year, just in insurance. So that's another thing to think about, trying to stay in the core of the town. And I think we can, you know, that would be a good place. Are there other places we're looking? So it's on our list of 5 pages of things we need to do. So it's, you know.
Don't say you're looking at lot 15. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, though, that it is an important consideration on our official
Right.
map, that, you know, that we have opportunities where we have to expand for our town services.
I have to share one with you, which, so back in '98, when we were looking at building the addition on the current station, we looked at Tailhawk, but at the time, again, it was gonna be police and fire, and there wasn't enough room. So we kind of nixed that idea, and I was talking to Vic one day, and I said, what about that land across the road? He says, for $100,000, I'll sell it to you, and you can build your fire station over there. So, looking back, it would have been a great investment. So anyways, a lot to come on capital.
At
So,
this point,
right,
it's not impacting the budget. This
Right, this year
capital
is
plan really,
correct.
unless we wanted to put
Right.
something in
Put
there,
money
unless we
aside.
started to do that,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
probably, you know, it might
Right.
be if the board feels like, yeah, we're gonna have to do something.
right,
And we wanted to start moving forward, it probably would be a good idea to just, even if it's
Right.
just a little bit, it sort of puts it in front of everybody that says, hey, there's a
Placeholder.
plan here.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I think at this point, we wait for you to
Right.
come
yep,
and say, here's
right.
our,
Here's the plan.
here's
Yeah,
choice A, maybe choice B would be
Yep.
good to have a choice.
absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
um,
Yeah, and one of the things which,
yeah,
yeah, we're gonna have to do now is, you know, we're getting, I think because we don't have any funds readily available to us to do it, I haven't asked the association yet, but I'm hoping they'll pay for the appraisal on the Tailhook building and on the current fire station. And we've also started talking with another design builder to have them, actually, they're gonna meet Wednesday night to look at, you know, get a feel for what that building is, so we can start getting an idea of cost. You know, so it, you know, we'll do that with a couple different people. So we have,
Well,
but,
you run into the same problems that you said about the meeting the new criteria for a public safety
Right.
building on Tailhook
Right.
that you would on this building.
yeah, they would have to go back in and do the same thing, so
Yeah.
it's same, so, you know, that part
That's
is.
just so it lasts through a hurricane and things like that.
Exactly, it just
Yeah.
ties the roof down to
Yeah.
the sidewalls. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty
no,
much.
no, it makes
You'd
sense,
hope your
though.
house
If
was
you have
tied
a
together
disaster,
anyways, but.
It'd be nice to
but,
have a couple buildings
yeah.
survive.
In fact, when the police station was built, it was actually missed, and they had to go back in and do it, which was an oversight. So, but anyway, so it won't impact this budget, but like I said, I'm gonna ask the association to put up some funds to help move the project forward, so.
And you're looking at a potential bond vote, maybe?
Yeah, which, I don't even remember the year we had, 20, not this March, but
Yeah.
next March, so, hopefully, may not be, I mean, it, you know,
Well,
there's a
yeah, this
long
is-
ways
right,
between here
right.
and there, so, I question we would be ready, but.
Has there been any conversation about a regional ambulance service? Because
That's what it, yeah.
All right, we've had it,
Just to follow up
it's
on what
been
Andrew-
here and it's failed
Why does it fail?
because of the volume of calls.
But it seems
You
like if you
couldn't-
had
right.
like hubs
Right.
throughout the county.
It doesn't
So-
mean you can't locate ambulances
Oh,
in
yeah.
individual places.
I
but
mean,
you
other
had a-
states, one of the prime ones was AMA is a huge national ambulance, privatized ambulance service. You see them in almost all, a lot, I won't say a lot of big cities use AMA. And I know some people that run on them, and some of those ambulances we have more stuff on Med 100 than they have on those ambulances. And I think it's quality of service is the issue. You know, they looked at, twice that I know of, there was regionalized, privatized ambulances, and they failed both times, just because the response time was so bad. And the state, you know, has so many guidelines that they have to meet. And like one of the guidelines.
They have to be full-time employees.
Well, they have to be
sitting in
full-time
there.
employees, and, you know, the state has a whole bunch of minimum standard equipment on every ambulance, which there is I know it was actually three of them that went out of business that tried to do that, and they were not doing even emergency transports. They were just doing inter-hospital or, you know, elderly housing to the hospital and that kind of thing, and they all failed, you know, because it just, you know, with the overhead of everything is required, it just didn't make sense because they didn't have the ability for long-term funding for a lot of the equipment. And, you know, I know it's been looked at by a couple more private companies to do that, and they just steer away from Vermont. The only one that's like that is Rescue Incorporated, which is down in Brattleboro. But they run a lot in New Hampshire and Massachusetts from down there.
I'm not necessarily talking privatized
Yep.
ambulance, sir. I'm talking more like
Oh, yeah.
Hinesburg working
Yeah.
with Charlotte or
Right.
Williston
Oh, yeah.
or
Yeah.
other towns, because it just doesn't seem
Right.
feasible for every little town like ours
Oh, yeah, yeah.
to be able to support.
Right. I think
ambulance service.
I think it boils down to quality of service. I think that's really what it boils down to. Because, you know, I had originally thought that, well, I'd kind of like to model that the way Underhill Jericho used to do it with Essex Rescue. But they have an ambulance up in Underhill Jericho's fire station, but they pay for, Essex Rescue pays, I think, for 2 people to be there, and then the town pays them a very large amount of money to have the ambulance sit there whether it rolls or not. So it's almost like having their own. I mean, they probably would be better off to have their own, but, you know, I think it's, then that's the only model. I actually talked to Leslie at St. Mike's about that, to see if they would be interested in housing an ambulance down here if we had a place for them. And they said no. just because of the student
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
And, you know, most agencies that run ambulances have two, and they can keep one in service because the service time on the, you know, they make so many runs that they wear them out quicker, I guess is the way to put it, you know. And it's really level of care. Yeah, for a long time.
Time.
Right, time. And like,
If we had a central in Williston, it still takes.
But
I mean, if we could house one here,
You house one here, but you have all the
Right.
administrative costs
Yeah.
happening in a central place.
Right.
And you
Wow.
have the same kind of dedication of volunteers or employees. And
Right.
so that's where your quality of service comes, is
Right.
from the dedication of
Right.
people who really
Absolutely.
want to do that.
right, and I think truthfully, I think that's one of the reasons why you see so many communities have their own ambulance. Because they want to be able to have a lot of input on what that level of care is. And, you know, not to say that the departments that have full-time staff have less level of care. They don't, but the cost, like Charlotte's ambulance is $400,000 a year to run their ambulance. Because they have two people, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, paid staff people. So,
Why wouldn't we have
Right.
those same costs?
because of the volunteers. There's
But we
some things-
but we need to have people during the day, and we don't have the volunteers
Right.
during the day.
that's where the paid person would come in. Yeah,
Right.
Have to have one paid person.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Right,
there
yeah,
is
so
no
I
doubt
think we
about it.
really have to
Yeah.
keep that in mind all the
Yeah.
At some
time.
point, you're gonna have to have two.
Yeah,
And at some
exactly.
point, you're gonna have to have, because a couple of weeks ago, I ran 15 calls a week. And I got other things to do besides
Exactly, yeah.
running calls.
Yeah, and it, you know, and it is, I mean, it's a start, you gotta look at it like a startup company. You know a lot of the information going in, you're gonna get some surprises along the way. And hopefully in the end, you know, you've done your due diligence and things are cost effective. And, you know, not to say that the runs will pay for all the ambulance, it won't, but it'll pay for a very big share of it.
I mean, I think, you know, our highway department, you know, costs a lot in that we have full-time salaries and overtime when it's snowing and, you know, a lot of
Yeah.
equipment and all that. Police, sort of same thing, a lot of training, you know, and a lot of, and, you know, fire and rescue, primarily all volunteers.
Right. And we
So
do,
and I don't imagine
right.
we're gonna flip the switch and go
Right.
the other way, but
No.
so we need to sort of continue to leverage the
Absolutely,
volunteers.
it's huge. And that's why I say we're not ready to be there.
Yeah.
Because we've got to build up those volunteers and, you know, EMS people do more training than in a year than the police do,
Yeah.
you know, because of the state standards and stuff. And it, you know, it's a big challenge to get those people brought in and trained and keep them and, you know, but I think that's the advantage to our community, that we have people that want to do that, so.
So, I mean, it sounds like, you know, so we're looking out a couple of years, and during those couple of years, a lot of work for you guys, obviously, just like what's the best model, how does it work,
Yep.
what's it gonna cost, how do we
Yep.
get that money? And I think that reaching out to the town too,
Yep.
and
Oh, yeah.
say,
It's
hey,
huge. Yeah.
you know, we can do this, this is,
Right.
it'll cost this, it's not free, but,
Yep.
you know, we've had some meetings, and people have yelled at us because they said, we don't have, you know, we want faster service.
Right. Yeah, and
and
truthfully,
that
that's
was
the
in
only
their
place,
opinion.
right,
Yeah.
and that's the only place we can improve our service, truthfully, right now is because we get people there quick. You know, it's on the other end, once you get there, getting them to the hospital, that's the
Yeah.
only place we can improve what we do, to get people there quicker, and that's one of the, you know, if, given whose ever ambulance, whether it's ours or somebody else's, that's gonna be the only improvement in service we can do, is get them to the hospital quicker, because that's what's gonna save them, is getting them there quicker, you know. And the amazing thing that's happening right now, which where that is paramount, is strokes. The number of strokes we're seeing now is just amazing. I mean, I would say probably 1 in 4 calls now are strokes, which you never used to, you know, the awareness probably is higher about them, but people have a lot of strokes now.
Well, everybody's aging, so.
Well, it's
yeah.
aging and it's pressure, you know, financial pressure, you know, it's
Yeah, yeah.
everything that goes with life, I guess, yeah.
Taxes.
Yep, taxes. But, yeah, anyways, yes, a lot to come on the capital, so.
Okay.
Our regular budget really, it's a, I think, 5.22, and we didn't raise any, we didn't do any rate adjustment last year. The year we're in is the same as the previous year, so, it's a little bit of catch up because we should have recognized the signs of more calls, because that's really where it's coming from, is we're just getting more calls,
But this capital transfer that's shown in there isn't reflective of any of these conversations tonight,
No,
of things that we
it's-
should be thinking about or saving towards, or.
Right. It's
anything.
Something we
additional to
already
that.
have.
Yeah.
Right.
So that,
Yep.
we're committed to that.
Yes.
Yep.
And did you have the same conversation with the new town manager in Shelburne?
Actually, one of the reasons why you got your set price on dispatch is he was my administrative assistant for the local emergency planning committee, which runs out of CCRPC, so.
Right.
Right in
I
early.
understand that, but yours went
Right.
up,
Oh, yeah. Yep,
the fire
calls.
department went up 2,000.
Yep, calls.
So-
Yeah, it's all about
It's just
calls.
number of
Okay.
calls.
Yeah, and I guess we're really fortunate. I don't know if you ever share that big sheet that comes from Shelburne. I should make sure you get that.
I don't think so, no.
So it has every call for every town they do, and they take their budget and just divide it. That's how
Okay.
they come up with the per call cost, which, is really sharing assets hugely,
Yeah.
34 something, I think it is this time, so. But anyways, the few changes really is just, it's calls.
Is there any rhyme or reason why the calls are going up so much?
Age.
It's-
It's, yeah,
It's everywhere that's going up.
yeah,
It's
Everywhere's
the,
going up.
yeah.
you know, 20 years ago, you cut your finger, you went to the doctor. Now you call an ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I hate to say, but that's a lot of it.
Yeah, right.
When I was a kid, you get bit by a dog, you went, you put some Epsom
Yeah.
salts on it and you soaked it overnight.
Where you
Now
at?
you go in there, you go to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody calls after with complications from something.
Surgery.
They
Yeah.
call the
Well-
doctor, and doctor says, I want you to transport it up. Call
Right,
an
and
ambulance.
we see a fair amount of that because they push the discharge so fast from the hospital that we get.
But you did say a lot of the calls were strokes, and you want
Yep.
to go to the hospital. with a
Yep,
stroke.
absolutely.
You don't want to put
yeah,
Epsom
Great.
salts on it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so most of this is really just driven by calls, Wish there was a better answer, but,
And I
Yeah.
think aging is probably the underlying cause.
oh, yeah.
Nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Any other specific questions on the budget?
See down in firefighting foam, that was where they were offset in the past, and so they're trying to right-size that a little more. Still not quite, the actual was 2805.99 for FY 18, but they've sort of come up with a,
We did some extra training that year, so,
Mm-hmm.
and that again, that's strictly driven by calls, fire
Yeah.
calls. If we don't have many, we won't use much, but.
but you've also talked about, you and David talked about a plan that you have to how to use the resources you
Yep,
have. in
yeah,
a better,
we've actually
different way.
gone to duty crews now, so we have two groups of responders. Basically, what'll happen is, if it's a routine call, we'll call it, smoke alarm with no smoke, CO alarm, down power lines, those minor calls, the duty crew will go, which, it may comprise of 5 people, 8 people, where before you might get 20 people.
Okay,
So
so
it's
you're able to-
trying to, share the load of the work, because, if you think about the number of calls that people are responding to, it's burning them out.
Yeah.
Absolutely will hopefully have a good effect on the budget, but it's burning people out, and we've lost some good people this past year just because they're burned out, which is too bad. And again, that's an effort to try to alleviate that problem and should have a good, good effect on the budget, hopefully. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
The
that's,
call reimbursables.
right,
Yeah.
yep.
but,
Yeah. And we got run less vehicles, cause,
yeah,
now there'll be 2 vehicles instead of 4.
yeah.
So it just, hopefully that'll. And one thing which I didn't put on here, just because everything is such a blur right now with everything that's going on. We've actually, Cummings Electric, when they came to look at the EV charging station, I got talking to him and he's gonna come back and there's a grant program where we can actually get the lights changed out to
Oh, higher
LEDs at the fire
efficiency, yeah,
station.
good.
So he's,
Yeah.
I just haven't had a chance to call him back, but he had just done Winooski Fire Station, and it was basically a zero cost, so, yeah, so we'll be doing that, so that should help in our utility,
That's
And
just for
usage.
fire departments, yeah.
And I think over the last few years, the number of volunteers have grown,
Yeah.
and does that pipeline still seem pretty good?
Pipeline is pretty good, I mean, we're over 50 still, you still have a really active group, and then you have that somewhat active group, and then you have a couple people that aren't, but we're pretty good right now, everybody's pretty active, and we're in the 50 range, so, we need to be in the 75 range for an ambulance. I mean,
But
that's
that might
bottom line.
attract more.
Oh, yeah, and,
Yeah.
and I, over the years too, it's funny because, I have a lot of people talk to me from the community, and over the years, I had a number of people come to me and say, I just can't do first response because first response is a different world because you're there by yourself. With an ambulance, you have a group of people going. So, it's security in numbers for one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And a number of people says, as soon as you get an ambulance, I'll be knocking on your door to join up because, I've been on an ambulance before. I tried first response and it doesn't work. And we've had people be on first response that they lasted like 3 months and that was it. They were, didn't want any part of that because you're
by
really out by yourself.
Yeah, you never know what you're gonna.
Different deal. Oh, yeah, I've run into some of them myself. So it was, I have a great appreciation for their feeling.
Okay.
Yep,
Anything else?
The insurance, Al, that.
yep.
You're budgeting quite a lot more. Is there any reason why it's, other than their rates?
So, right, David deals a lot with the insurance. We use VFIS insurance. It's not part of the main town insurance because it's a pool insurance from across the United States for fire department. So, like our deductible on portable radios is $100. VLTC is $1,000. So we've taken advantage, I don't want to say it, that's probably the wrong word. We've utilized the insurance, more over the years, so we've had to go to a $500 deductible but, like Saputo, they paid almost $300,000 in less than a month. Where it was over a year before VLTC even got to the claim for the departments that weren't covered by VFIS. So it's just a matter of practicality. One of the changes one of the reasons why it went up was because of the new truck. So that brand new truck cost more the first year. And they cover everything. It's buildings, all the equipment, errors and omissions for the officers. We have insurance if one firefighter runs into another firefighter's car while they're going to a call. Covers them from the time of the page to the, dock to dock, basically, from the time of the page to the time they get home. They're covered by insurance, so it's a pretty different type policy, and I think.
But then they're also covered by workers' comp.
They're covered by workers' comp through the Selectboard, through the town, not, right, yeah.
But they're also, what are they covered for when you just said they're covered from the time they take a call?
Right, medical, everything is covered. So
They have an accident.
if you're injured, right, so if you're injured, if you're injured on a site or responding to a site, they cover it. But it's a secondary coverage, depending upon the kind of accident it is, okay? So, they fall down, break their leg, on a fire scene, it's a workers' comp claim, but they come in after that to cover excess expenses that aren't covered by the workers' comp claim. So it's really combines, it's a secondary coverage on that part of it. So, like the errors and omissions for the officers, I think it's $2 million per event for each officer. So we screw up.
Someone thinks you do, right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's really a wide encompassing policy. And I know that first one, I kind of looked at that. I don't, in the past years, which I didn't remember going back and looking at, what the difference was. We always have been pretty close, but I think that 1 year was a problem with, well, not a problem, because we had the new truck. It was quite a lot more expensive truck, it was 3 times the cost of some of our other trucks, so.
Already.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I guess just in regard to the, and I'm no expert, but I'm just having a hard time seeing how you folks can keep up with the call volume without, in any town, keeping up with the call volume if people are calling the ambulance or 911 for a scratch. And I'm just wondering if there's been discussions about how do we promote just going to the doctor or something other than a full-scale response from you guys.
People's expectations have just changed over the years. They really
We
have.
can
Yeah.
change them
I
another
think
way.
it's time to really start
Well, yeah.
changing.
Well,
that,
you're right. I
because-
mean, and we do that with our, we tried to do that with our public education stuff. In fact, we have a person now that will hopefully be able to do some outreach, so like Kelly Fields and Green Street and some of the places that are a little more call intensive, I guess. And doesn't have to be those. I mean, it could be individual houses where we get repeat calls where maybe there is some outside help that could come in and alleviate us having to go for a lift assist. We get a fair amount of lift assists for people that fall down, can't get up, And, so.
Can you actually refuse or not?
No.
Once you
No.
get there, you're.
Right, once you get there, but one of the things that does happen, we still get called there. But, we'll get refusal forms, like, a lot of times we'll get called to a car accident by a passerby, not the person that was in the accident. We get there, they aren't hurt. If there's absolutely no, there was no injuries of any sort and we didn't have to touch them, we still unfortunately got called.
Yeah.
And that's where the police help us a lot, because they're usually ahead of us, and they'll say, this is just a slide off, and they cancel us quick. So, it alleviates a lot of that. Enough of it, probably not, but it's better. I know towns that don't have the police department responding, they go to a lot more calls than we do, just because of that.
One of the problems is when we show up for medical, and it's just one of those ones where you really don't think it's anything or whatever. The problem is when you walk back out that door, if they have not, and we do, we sign our little paperwork, we call the emergency room and all of that. But the problem is if they ride up with a friend or anything and something happens to them on the way up, I mean, they're gonna literally own a fire department.
Right.
We have to err so much on the side of caution when we get a call that we better make sure that they're gonna be able to make it up to the hospital or whatever's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. It's just the lesser injuries.
Hangnails. We call them hangnails.
What did I say to you the other day, Renee?
I mean, we
You
get
wanna
back
cut
to
our
the-
budget? Stop calling us.
when we get back to the
Simple as
station,
that.
Well, that's kind of.
It's as simple as that. You
when
wanna
we
cut
get
our
back to
budget?
the station, just shaking our head, it's like, what a waste.
Yeah, and I'm
We
sure
gotta
it
go,
is.
we were called, we have to go.
But
Right.
say like Hinesburg rides, for example, if at 6 o'clock in the evening, we could call, and because somebody up in wherever has nobody to take them to the hospital, I mean, wouldn't that be great if they could just hop in a Hinesburg ride car and go up? But then you have to second guess is everything gonna be okay and they're gonna get to the ER and like that? Because to me, Hinesburg Ride could do an incredible job for us.
Right, so, but in that situation, if somebody makes that decision to call Hinesburg Rides instead of calling you, when you guys get in the middle, that's when you
They
have
do
the
it before they get to
liability.
us, great.
So that's I think what we want to promote is, if you're living alone and you need a ride, that's why Hinesburg Rides is there. And-
They are working on it.
yeah, so I think that's a great way of trying to understand your responsibility is definitely there, but people can take responsibility for themselves and say, okay, I need a ride, and I can call my friend, or I can call Hinesburg Rides.
We have encountered also people that have done that and end up pulling into the fire station and saying, I need help. Because they thought it was kind of a minor thing, and turns out it was both feet were broken, but.
Yeah.
I can't say as we have a lot of those, really. Probably out of that 240 whatever calls we're at right now, what do you think? 10 maybe?
If that.
15 calls maybe of that?
Yeah.
Or that.
And if we have the ambulance and somebody needs, they say, I'm not feeling well,
Right.
and, they say, well, they probably could have got a ride, but the ambulance take them, they'll be charged for that.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, or
And
insurance will
truthfully,
pay.
that's why a lot of people will call,
Yeah,
because they have insurance.
yeah.
Yeah, their insurance will pay for it, right.
Not that much, but
Kind of
yeah.
unfortunate, but, yeah.
All right, are there any other
Yeah.
questions, or? So, I think town meeting will be an opportunity to sort of start breaking the ice here.
I
that-
hope we're gonna have.
Some info by
we'll-
then, yeah.
More sorted out by
Some
then.
numbers,
More sorted out.
Yeah, yeah,
good or
that's,
bad, we'll have
yeah.
numbers.
Not done by
no,
any
that's
means,
good.
but at least
I'm sure it's a ton of work, so.
headed down the road, so.
And I mean, since, I've been involved, not all that, I've seen things sort of change, you guys are pretty flexible, I think. There's some flexibility there that sort of says, here's what we think, oh, no, we can maybe do, oh, yeah, here's where we're going, so.
Yep.
That's good to
Adapt and
know.
overcome, yeah. We all pay taxes too, so that's why we try to be good at that, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Good night.
making it be so comprehensive.
Yeah,
That's very helpful.
You stay in touch with us and we'll,
Yeah.
I'll keep feeding you
All right.
information.
So Al, we're doing the alarm ordinance. If you were,
For the alarm.
yeah, I
I
know.
got 45
I know.
seconds.
I've been watching.
45 seconds, man.
Doing good.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just said that, 45 seconds, yeah. So the next item on the agenda is number 6, consider adoption of an alarm ordinance. I don't think we will vote on it, but we're getting presented with that. Anthony's gonna, so you're been designated the ordinance
I would
writer.
certainly sit with him because it's a combined ordinance.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we got a copy of a draft. It would be good if it said draft on there, but, and then, and I'll just make a comment. So, I don't expect the board will want to vote on this today. We're just seeing it. But, we've got the signatures there, and it would be good to have the adoption date or revision date on each page. So we're just trying to get more
In like a
standardized.
footer
Yeah, just so that we look at a page and we go, okay, that's from that particular one. But we got a copy in our packet. I think everybody probably had a chance to look at it. Do you want to just, I'm assuming it came from another one from another town similar to ours, or, how did you build it? Because there were some things in here I was a little surprised about, In my mind, it was very simple, and this is a little more, but that's okay. So.
I got with Doug a long time ago, a couple of years back, and he gave me the numbers, and the alarms were increasing every year. And basically, we were going to nuisance alarms, alarms that we had been to over and over again. CVU, for example, Hinesburg General was a big one. Also, residents. You go to the same, I can remember the same garage door that we would go to consistently month after month, and we know that it's a faulty sensor, and basically the owner of the alarm has no reason to fix it. And I spoke with chief, got the basics police chief, got the basics as to what we would need in the ordinance. And I went through first I went through all of the Chittenden County ordinances, picked out what I thought would pertain to Hinesburg. And then I went through the entire state and picked out some of the towns that were comparable in size to Hinesburg, or that I felt were. And basically put together what I thought would be good for us. And then more recently, I got with the fire department, specifically the fire chief, and we went back and forth with the specifics of sort of adapting what we had already had for police and making that so that we could extend it to fire. One of those things was, although in the past, refusal of response has been sort of a thing that we've agreed upon with the business owner or the homeowner, like, look, my alarm is not working anymore, please don't come anymore, take me off the list, or whatever it is, the alarm company is going to call you. We've been okay with that, but you can't really do that with fire, and that was one of the things that I had put in here, that we're not going to ever refuse a fire call. Not that we would ever really refuse a police call. I know there are some cities and towns in Vermont that do it. State police does it. South Burlington, I know specifically, if you don't pay, and they are really strict. First alarm, false alarm is I think $145, $45 registration fee. If you don't pay that, I think there's a couple times in between, but they won't come anymore. Just the police get called, 911, they don't come. So I don't think we're in that position, but I think that we have to make it a worst case scenario for what are we faced with. One of those things that I thought of was for a worst case scenario, and I sort of felt like it was me personally that wanted it from experience. And one of those things was external audible alarm. And I've been to alarms before that were sounding on a roof of a house, and the neighbor's like, can't you shut it off? No, we can't shut it off. Can you hold the owner accountable? No, we can't hold the owner accountable. And I just thought, and one of the things I put in here was within the village of Hinesburg, within the actual village limits, New South Farm to CBU, that external audible alarm should not be allowed. We just have too many people close to each other. Outside the village, I've left alarms going that were external audible. And there are certain cities and towns in Vermont, and again, refer back to South Burlington as one of them, they don't allow external audible. And when it came to other specifics, particularly the form that you would fill out, I don't have it here, the form that you would fill out,
We got it in our packet, yeah.
that it was sort of a collaboration of what Shelburne was doing. Right now, Shelburne does have a pretty good alarm ordinance, but they're not using it. They plan to. They plan on getting an alarm administrator, so I was told when I talked to them. But I based that form on them and on state police.
So why isn't Shelburne using theirs?
I think it was just one of those things where they didn't maintain it. They didn't have a proper alarm administrator, somebody that was going to say, we've been there 3 times, and
Yeah.
you guys need to do something. If it's not maintained, then it's just basically on the books, but you're not using it. And that's sort of what they have right now.
And who do you think would we just have one alarm administrator who sort of just oversees and, keeps track of that stuff?
I think it would need to be one, sort of like we do the animal control.
Okay.
Where one person is very, very familiar with
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, and this, Frank and I had talked over the years, even going all the way back to Chris Morrell, about an alarm ordinance, because of the growth and, things that we see on the horizon, which generate a lot of false alarms. And we don't get a lot, but we get them. A lot of times we don't have any contact information. That's
Yeah.
the worst part,
Yeah.
You
It's going
don't want to
off
break
and-
into that.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
90% of it, which I probably shouldn't say it. Most of the time, I'm able to get into the residences one way or another without doing any damage and verify there's nothing wrong inside. But, you know, if you can silence the alarm, okay. But a lot of times you can't, so
Yeah.
you have the same problem, just an
Yeah.
annoying alarm going off for who knows how long. And that's one of the things we really address in this is the contact information on who can come shut the thing off. And we encounter the, which he hadn't caught when we were doing this, was the sewer alarms.
Oh, yeah, you get
You get a lot of pump stations, more
yeah,
and more pump stations, and those are pretty annoying in a.
because they
mobile home
won't shut
park.
themselves off, right?
Yeah, so it, you know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things, again, if you don't have any information on who to call, you know.
And that's what's important about having a
Key.
yearly
Yeah.
registration, so that our information is up to date, so that it doesn't just,
Would it, so Missy's not here anymore, so would it come through the town clerk?
I thought it would be something that would be either more police or fire.
Okay,
But then,
you gotta
so
handle
how
the
do
funds.
people know that they need to get a permit?
We would start out, I would say either January or February, where we would post it
Yeah.
on all the outlets that we use to post.
Like we'd say dog license due, it'd say your alarm, out on the sign.
And
So,
it really is important. It's important to, it's gonna help us keep our calls down, I think, because, and it's gonna help us with safety of people that are responding to calls. I can remember going to the Hinesburg General which isn't there anymore, but Hinesburg General at 2 a.m, and I had been there multiple times, and I thought it was a false alarm, and they asked me, do you want backup? No, I assumed it was going to be the faulty sensor at the front door. I knew exactly where the sensor was. That was broken. And I got there, and there was a window open, and then I still thought, well, maybe they left a window open, and then the register was on the floor. And now I was alone with nobody, 15-minute, 20-minute backup to come from Williston or Shelburne. So if we were able to address that with an ordinance where you can't just let your faulty door, you can't just keep responding, then I might not have been in that situation. I would have been a little more cautious that maybe it is something legitimate.
well, the boy who cries wolf. The worst thing is
Yeah.
it's probably another false alarm, and you wouldn't want that. I'll add that this was a number of years ago that I saw some data on false alarms and the number of burglar alarms that people are getting. And particularly they tend to be neighborhoods with money. Then they have some, nice houses, they add alarms, and they started to add up the cost of responding to all of these false alarms and really siphoning money away from neighborhoods that need police, and so it's giving more resources to those for no reason when you're taking resources away from where you need it.
So currently, if there's a false alarm, the person who puts in the false alarm is not charged?
No.
The other thing is improper training of people that start a job.
Employees. Yeah.
We get that all the time. Specifically, there's a few really specific. We just hired somebody. Sorry about that. Well,
set the alarm off.
if you would have just taken an extra second to actually show them how to use the keypad, and then of course CVU, because there's so many teachers that have they get the code or they don't frequently use the alarm, and then it ends up going off. It almost seems like they don't care because they seem like it's, and I'm not singling out
No,
CVU, but
no.
they don't care because it's just, for them it's just a second, but for us it's it's almost consistently every Saturday that we go to CVU in the afternoon. There's games going on. We know there's not a legitimate alarm because and it happens. So.
I think the phones are a great idea. I know I've worked in schools where we had the code, something was alarmed, and I was always terrified because if I did it wrong and the alarm went off, it was $500, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was feeling like the fines really weren't enough.
Yeah, that's a good lead into where did those numbers
We
come
were trying to be nice.
We were.
Right.
It was sort of on the lower end, and we would be the lowest. And that was because it's just something new that we're giving the town, and
And we're just trying to get compliance. We're just, we're not,
Exactly.
it's not a moneymaker.
It's not a
Right.
moneymaker. It's-
Yeah.
it really isn't a moneymaker. It was to get people to do the right thing, is what it is.
One of the problems you have now too is you can buy alarms everywhere. It's online, $100 they'll alarm your house.
Most of these automatic calls, these alarms, or,
It's
so.
mixed. Some are alarm services and some are
Right.
just
So
dialers.
some are alarm services where
Yep.
it'll call whoever,
Yeah. They-
ADT or
Right,
whoever
and
it
they
is,
try to
then
get
they
somebody.
call.
Right.
They would call Shelburne,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And that
First
would-
they
and that
try
would
and
be a-
call the person that owns
Right.
the alarm.
Yeah. Did you set it off?
Go through the
Right.
list and then,
But then
And-
when people install their own,
As a dialer, you program
can't
it.
send it to the police station.
Well, that was one of the
You
things.
cannot send an automatic dialer to
Yeah.
the police.
Yeah.
Generally, it's going to the owner or something like that, then they would call us, but
Yeah.
I have never,
Okay.
ever gotten a call from an alarm telling me that it went off somewhere.
And is that against the law to do
Well,
that?
I think it's highly discouraged.
Yeah. Okay.
I put in here to ban automatic
Yes.
dialers.
Yeah. Which makes
I
sense.
was
Yeah.
gonna ask, I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah. So, but some of those, they, so if I was to put one in, I'd have it call my cell phone, and then I'm somewhere, I'm like, oh, my alarm's going off, I'm gonna call Shelburne, I'm gonna call 911.
Yep.
And then, just so you know, I've seen cats, obviously, set off these, and, at a business, we had one go off, a couple times, and it was, a balloon.
Oh. Yeah.
Somebody had a balloon.
Balloons,
that was
mice,
yeah,
cats,
floating
dogs.
around, yeah.
Yeah.
And it set it off.
Yeah.
But the thing with money is, part of keeping the cost down a little bit, is we really don't want to discourage people from having an alarm.
Right.
I mean, that's especially in the rural part, that's
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we're,
We're
where
not,
we
we're not
have the best
against
chance
them.
of catching
Yeah,
somebody.
just, right, I guess in the rural areas, you might potentially, and have you caught anybody because an alarm's gone off?
No, actually, we haven't. But what, most of it is, it could be a house cleaner, it could be, the last one I went to in the village was a cleaner that that they weren't supposed to turn the alarm on.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I really don't mind going to those calls.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I mean,
So you
there's that
say
chance.
that alarms don't really,
What?
You're encouraging people to do the alarms,
They're an
but they really
on-site,
don't help.
right,
No.
they're an on-site discouragement.
Yeah, yeah.
There's been
Scares
a
'em
few
away.
times where alarms have gone off and we think that somebody has been there
okay,
and
Oh.
they
They left when they heard the
automatically,
alarm go. Yeah.
okay, good, thank you.
Oh, no, it's
getting
definitely-
to it, actually catching them, who stays when they hear an alarm, so.
All right, so, if, I think now would be a time to just, if we have questions about it, we could ask. I had a couple of questions. I was asking about off hours, but you addressed it here. The voice dialer to town phone, so you answered that, that's not allowed. I saw that. And other than that, I think that's all I had.
So if it's a company that installs the alarm, they do charge if it's a false alarm, don't they?
Not typically because they're paying a monthly fee.
Yes.
A lot of those alarm companies, you pay a monthly fee to have somebody answer it,
Okay.
so they don't, that way it doesn't get charged. It's just a monthly fee. Yeah.
But if the alarm goes off and they have to call the fire department
Right.
and it's a false alarm, then they
No.
charge you,
I
don't
don't
they?
think so, no.
No, they don't charge, there's no charge in between. Charge goes between the fire department or the service and the homeowner. So,
What's also nice is we got ADT in our house and they gave us a 7-day window of where they would not call the police and basically just use the alarm and get used to it.
Yeah,
And after the 7 days, they begin to dispatch.
yeah.
I would love to see Doug's data if this gets passed a year from now, 2 years
Yeah,
from now,
it'd be interesting.
compared to where it
And
is now.
so,
See where this goes.
I imagine a percentage of our off-hour calls when we are paying overtime, there aren't a lot of calls, but those tend to scramble somebody,
And
yeah,
that's why,
4-hour call out.
yeah, right,
to compensate for that, I put in the off-duty response.
yep,
A little
I
bit
saw
more.
that,
And
yeah,
not put it as a first offense.
yeah,
And it's also, if you look at the 220, you can choose to basically pay the waiver fee or the civil penalty. If somebody is not going to pay the waiver fee to the town, and it's basically, I'm not paying it, it's a refusal, we write them a ticket and it goes to court. And that's how
And
most
then
of
they
the
pay
towns
the
do.
$220.
And then they pay the $220.
So-
But then they get to go before a judge also.
Yeah, they can argue
Right,
their point
right.
if they want. Right.
So if it happens and they don't contest it, they pay for the third offense $50. Right. If they contest it, then they may ultimately end up having to pay $220.
They can go through the channel of the towns
Yeah.
of Hinesburg, or they can go through the channel of, I'll just take you to court. And then we write them a 220. And the reason I used 220 was because that was when we do finally get our traffic offenses in, it's going to be a standard pretty much. A stop sign will be 220. Most of the offenses will be 220. And there's also a part in here where the maximum fee right now to bring a civil matter for this to court is $800. So I made that clear in there that it's $800. After that, it becomes criminal. Do I ever think it would get to that point? No. I think that everybody hopefully will handle it on the local, go through the proper channels with the town of Hinesburg.
So I think the only question that I would have, you know, and we'll obviously have this on another agenda and then give people a chance to take a look at it and weigh in, it's just the logistics of, you know, getting an understanding of where people bring their money, you know, and if it could be the police department or wherever it is, it just seems like if it came to the town clerk, they know what to do with their money, you know? So just the logistics of how it would work.
Administratively, what's it gonna cost
Yeah,
to run this?
yeah,
The reason I thought police or fire is because there's sort of a, just by nature of we're not attached, there's a delay. If it were to go to Missy and somebody had just gotten an alarm, there could be a delay, but by the time police and fire know, if it comes to us, we know immediately.
yeah.
And if either of us are doing it, I can't imagine that there would be that much extra for us to just maintain it.
Yeah, and I don't know what would be the best way, and, you know, it always could be changed if it works or doesn't work.
I see
So-
some benefit too of the person who actually has the alarm talking to the person who's actually going to respond.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. making sure
And
they
whatever kind of
understand it.
casual conversation
Yeah.
that may happen there or instruction.
But anybody who's working in the police department could give people the form, fill it out, take the money. Doesn't have to be the alarm administrator. I mean, it's not like it's gonna, so it's supposed that there's pretty much always somebody at the office.
Yes, and that's the other
Yeah.
the other reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Work. And do we know how many alarms there are?
No clue.
Doug ran the numbers for me, but it is going up every year.
Yeah,
It is a lot,
I
right,
bet.
for those alarms. Fire
For
alarms
those-
are a ton, right? You don't really know.
Yeah.
That's the problem we have. We don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, in terms of people's smoke detectors going
No.
off?
No, not smoke detectors so much as the hardwired alarm systems.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them that,
Yeah.
if it's a 99% of the time, if it's a burglar alarm, it's also a fire CO.
Yeah,
In the same system.
I see.
They get tripped more often than it does for the fire, but we do get them to
Yeah.
trip. So.
Because
Yeah.
cooking, you're saying you call it cooking alarms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, you kind of learn, and, you know, really, we thought about this for quite a long time, and, you know, as the town grows, and you look at how much cheaper those alarm systems
Yeah.
are now.
yeah,
I mean, it's great to have an alarm like that. A lot of people don't realize it. It'll go into an answering point. Now, many of them around here go to Maine to get answered. So think about the staff, maybe the size of this, sitting in a room answering maybe 20,000 alarms.
yeah.
Okay, so we got a big snowstorm down south. And guess what? There's lots of alarms coming in, but my little alarm up in Vermont where it's sunny is thrown into that mix. One of the things that happens in Williston and Burlington and South Burlington, they go in and they test the alarm to see what the delay time is. And depending upon the weather, it's surprising sometimes how long.
It's not
It'll be 10
immediate.
minutes.
Yeah. So
before you
we've
get an
done
alarm.
fire alarms for businesses.
Yeah.
And we do them, usually we tell everybody, but then sometimes we say, hey, we're not gonna tell our security service. Let's find out when you get the call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we do that
And
with schools.
it's,
I mean,
you know, it's
yeah.
usually pretty quick, but
Yeah.
not every time.
Depends, if you do it on
Yeah.
a bad weather day, it's gonna be
Yeah.
delayed, so, but it's just the nature of it. So,
Literally.
better late than never.
All right, so,
Yes, he does. Luckily, it doesn't get
Been
to
there
us.
at 2 in the
very
morning.
It's funny. Every now and then we'll have issues with it, and then you
Yeah.
won't. So it's something that does it.
Right.
You don't.
You don't know.
You just
necessarily
don't
what
always
it
know what it is.
It could be power, all right, a lot of times it's power
There's a power
related,
surge or something.
Yeah.
utility related,
Yeah.
phone lines.
And
I mean-
sometimes, like you said, sometimes it is something.
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
I remember going there and thinking, did somebody go there and then they're driving around on the, you know, you just never knows. That's happened before, so.
Yep, yeah. Yep.
So the only thing you noted is just put something in the header or footer to
Yep.
identify.
That was the only thing I had. And maybe next time, you know, just a brief description of how we would roll it out.
Okay.
Maybe.
Including the outreach part of it.
Yeah, there's the outreach and, were you thinking any particular timing here? I mean, you know, we could, I'm trying to focus on budget for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So potentially we could, in February at a meeting, we could have an open meeting and say, you know, by then, you know, think we've nailed it down and maybe a little more information of timing, so people might want to know how long I would have to
I think
register.
We pass it and then we give a nice long grace period where we put it on Facebook, we put it on Front Porch, every, you know, the 5 places, everything we need to do to ensure that
Yeah.
everybody knows, or at least to the best that we can.
So
So
the
it could
grace
be-
period he refers to as the 60 days.
Yeah,
that we
so it
have
could be
to-
like a July 1st when it, yeah,
Yes.
if we were to,
And so everybody who has an existing system would be required to come in and register.
Yes, and the other thing is, as we respond to them, like, just to
Did
make
you
you
know?
aware, you need to register.
Right, yeah, here's the form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, here's your form, yeah.
There's going to
Okay.
be close to your registrants right there. False
A lot
alarm.
of them, yeah.
It might be good to, you know, we'll have a warned meeting and we'll probably get some people who are for it, maybe some people who are against it. Might be good to have a little more data, like how many calls, you know, do we think we had at that, just so we're,
Yeah.
I might have somebody that can pull those numbers. for
yeah,
me.
right.
Yeah, because otherwise it'll get into a lot of sort of false memory stuff about or
I mean,
perception things.
so I mean, I could just take like a quick little poll on the board, or what are people thinking about this? Are you thinking it's generally positive, or a good move, or any concerns?
I'm generally thinking that it's solving. My initial question I had was, is this a solution looking for a problem? Right, and it sounds like it's not.
The other way.
It's the other way around, and this is a pretty cooperative way to go about solving a situation that the two of you in your respective departments are describing to me. You know, that gobbles up a lot of resources. And especially, and I don't know what the number is here, but especially the ones where, as you described, the door sensor on the garage door, there's no incentive for somebody other than just do the right thing to take care of a problem. This helps. This
Yes.
gives you a tool to help you take care of a problem. Not the least of which is the situation where you described down at the general store, where you were put into a situation where you didn't need to be put into.
Yes.
You know, and so, yes, there's a couple little minor things Phil's talked about that I had the same ideas on, but, you know, I'm
I mean,
certainly in favor of moving
One of the
that
things
way.
you run onto, it's the difference in us,
Yeah,
is so he goes there, everything looks good, okay.
yeah,
We go there,
yeah.
we don't know it looks good until we get inside,
Uh,
one way or another.
Yeah.
You know, we always, knock on wood, we've always done it
And-
respectfully. There are departments that don't do it
Well,
respectfully when they
so I
get
think it's
alarms,
fairly large-
multiple alarms.
I was at a fairly large business and we had put in a new system, and we had the fire department come and we were showing them, here it is. And then we were talking about, how to get in the front door. And they said, oh, don't worry about that. And we were like,
We have
oh,
big
yeah.
access, yeah.
Don't worry
Yeah,
about that. We'll
exactly.
get in the front door.
Well, I've been to
So-
a few over the years where we didn't know what it was. And again, that's where this helps, where I've had to climb through a window and establish, is it fire or is it a security alarm? And you just don't know because you don't have any contact with the owner.
Right. No, this seems reasonable and.
And if somebody has not registered their alarm and they call, or their alarm goes off, you go anyway, right? Even if they haven't filled
Yes.
out
Yeah.
the form. And then you say, here's the form that you should have filled out. It seems to me that they should have to pay a penalty.
There is something in there for that.
That's not a free first offense, that should be,
Yes, failure to register penalty.
oh, okay, good.
Right, but not for, like, we have to determine some amount of time.
Not until this is well established.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And it's the second time we reminded them that they didn't register is where that really comes in.
All right, so I think this, well.
That was my
Yeah.
opinion. Yep.
Andrea, what are you thinking about this?
I too am like, well, my concern is, what are the administrative costs to implementing this gonna be? And we wanna make sure that the fees are gonna cover those costs to implement it.
Or you want to cover, so it with hopefully a few less
Yes.
false alarms helps to put more resources, and some of those resources may be in this, and having alarm systems that work seem like that's helps everybody too, so.
$33 a call.
Yes.
What it
Right.
used to be.
Just
and
dispatching, right?
Well, are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
also continuing to do vacant house checks?
We do those, yes.
Yeah, but we don't charge for those.
No, but we have it established where we're doing it in the course of our normal day. So
Uh-huh.
if it's on 116, we don't make a specific trip. We go past it when we're going past it.
So we've consistently heard all evening an increase in demand on services. Here's a way to decrease that demand. That's kind of how I look at it. Yeah.
Tom, what are you thinking?
Normally, I'm not in favor of any more fees.
Right, yeah.
This seems to have, the savings hopefully, and I do like the thought about registering the alarms. The only question I have is how are you gonna organize those with these fees? I mean, is it gonna pop up on the computer? Is that how it'll work? Will you guys know instantly the contact information as the call comes through? Or are you gonna have to go through your card file?
It'd be a spreadsheet, and probably Shelburne will have a copy of it.
Yeah,
Anyways, so.
and also we could look it up. We could look it up in the computer. What were the calls for that month? But also, what this is really going to come down to is the nuisance alarms, the stuff that you just know, like Hinesburg General. It was just all on our radar that it was not a legitimate alarm, but we have to go. So that's when this is really going to
Help shut that down.
Yes, the other ones I see it just being we keep track of it through our actual police database, and then the fire would give their side to us, or vice versa.
Yeah, what happens when somebody dies and there's a new owner to a house and it's the same? They're gonna need to come and register so you have their contact info.
Well,
So we have to work out something with when,
That'll work itself out when the old owner gets the call, turn their alarm off, right?
yeah.
Which has happened.
No,
That's
that would never work that
no,
way.
that's exactly how it happens. Oh, I don't know that anymore. You have to.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Call the realtor and maybe
Yeah,
they
exactly.
can tell you.
that's gonna sort of go away now because from talking to the alarm company, they're so wireless now that everything they don't have wired systems. All the new alarms are not wired, so basically it's gonna be you're pulling the little sensor off the windows and bringing it to your new home. You might leave the keypad, but the new owner is going to have to. The old alarms, yes, there's an entire system because they're hardwired. They're just not doing them anymore, though.
Mary Lee?
I think it's a good
Okay,
idea.
and I think it's good. We've talked about it for 3 or 4 years anyways. So I appreciate you putting the time in, And I'm glad you stuck around, Al, to sort of say, no, this is a two-pronged,
Two-pronged approach.
yeah. So good,
Benefit for all.
thanks. All right,
Now can I go?
yeah,
Let me think about it.
yeah, thanks, Anthony. All right, next item, town administrators report.
All right, so over the past week, and there's still a lot of budget work has been going on. Received lots of, comments and things that the board has received. I've been trying to,
Oh, yeah, lots of
That
them
we-
coming in, yeah.
yep, that's in the packet tonight. The insurance RFPs, so we've been meeting, our committee has been meeting, reviewing those, and we had our first interview with one of the companies today, and then we have another one in the morning.
Good for you.
So that we're kind of getting our questions answered and hopefully be able to come with a recommendation to the board at the meeting on the 17th. And if we don't feel like we have it, where we have a clear understanding of which way to go, then we would likely have you interview
Okay,
at the 17th, on the 17th.
yeah, all right.
So hopefully we'll have a recommendation to bring to you. So,
Okay. Anything else? Joy?
Any update on the sidewalk now?
the sidewalk, as far as.
Plow?
The sidewalk plows just came back.
Yeah, good.
So it's in working order. And,
I mean, it won't snow now?
yes, of course. So we'll see. But anyway, so, utilities guys, there's, a person that they're going to meet with that, might be interested in doing it part of the time too, so.
Excellent.
We've got, James Donegan, who could be available to do it after January 1st. And then he had someone else that he recommended that they're going to
Great.
meet with
Yeah.
too, so, just so that there's some good options.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Any update on Gilman Road?
Yeah, I was
Gilman
curious.
Road, so the, Planning and Zoning Office is, monitoring it now. There is some, construction activity happening,
Yes,
so.
I saw that, yeah.
But, so that's the zoning,
Construction activity as in, has been applied for,
No,
or,
right.
yeah, okay.
So, but the zoning administrator is.
Is on it.
Is on that,
Okay.
yep. So, that's it. I mean, it still may at some point be coming back here,
Yeah.
to the board,
Mm-hmm.
so, but
okay,
that's where it's at right now.
all right, select board forum?
Tom?
Well, Jen already said, we have a big event coming up on January 4th. The Old Lander. Get your tickets, Marilee. Jiffy Mart or
Right,
HinesburgRec.org.
and that works pretty well, you
link
sign
right
in,
I had such a
yeah,
good time
Yeah.
last
works
year.
pretty well.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
did.
It's going to be good. Donations are coming in of food and
Great.
nice auction items.
Anything else for select board forum? I have a couple items. One is, we did have a wastewater, meeting with, Aldrich,
Elliot.
and Elliot, yeah, and, it wasn't a full committee, but it was a required meeting for 30% completion to show the state before our, grant, for the, loan, I
Clean
think.
water revolving.
Clean, using the loan, so, it was described, we're actually, past, farther than the 30%, but, so it was really a good review of where we are, how we got there, and we started to see some design options. I have the minutes we'll post in the next couple days if anybody wants to look at it. And Wayne did say, I could give another meeting right away if you want, and I think we decided, let's just wait a little bit, be more like into January. Well, he'll have developed some more, so that rather than saying, here are some possibilities and we have a lot of questions, he'll be able to say, here are some options and here are some associated costs associated with it. So, the trick is, both the phosphorus and the ammonia. And, our lagoons are right, I think there were 3 questions we had from the last meeting that we answered. One is, can we meet the permit using the lagoons we have now? And the answer is no. Then it was, let me see, I have the minutes right here. The other 2 questions, which we don't have enough money, we don't have enough information to answer yet. Let me see, I have it right here. Could we meet the new state limits of phosphorus and ammonia if we stay at our existing discharge limit of 250,000 gallons today and our existing lagoons? And so that was, that's not an option. We cannot meet those discharge limits with our existing processes, like fine tuning them. We've already sort of done that. The next question is, what are the options and costs if we stay at 250,000 gallons a day? That's to be determined. And then the next question is, what are the options and costs if we increase to meet expected town growth, which is determined to be 325,000 gallons a day. So that's sort of taking a full build out and dialing it back to expected, actual discharge. So there's actually a range there, but, we don't know commercial versus homes, but that was a number that we felt pretty comfortable with. So we'll get costs and design options for those 2 choices. So some of the designs utilize some of the lagoons, divide them up a little bit with some different technology, and then maybe a tertiary, something that polishes what's coming out. So there's a number of different options. Most of them, there are examples in the state, so we could go see them, I don't know, Waterbury, this is what they're using, or those kind of things. And I was going to say one other thing about it. And even if we were to do nothing, there are some things we need to do. So even if the permit wasn't a challenge, we really need to put the screening works in the front to do a better job of screening. The pump station really is in need of a little work, the forced main pump. The lab that we use is probably it's not up to snuff. So even if we weren't doing anything, there are some capital improvements we would want to make. So those will be incorporated into this. So, they're going to require, we'd need to do something in the future anyways. So we'll incorporate those into this. So I think that was a long-winded update.
There you go.
Can I make ask some questions? One is that we have some other opportunities in terms of thinking about our overall water quality in the La Platte. And Lake Iroquois Association and Lewis Creek Association have been doing monitoring on the La Platte and primarily on Patrick Brook, and seeing what, the phosphorus levels are high everywhere. And so what I don't want us to forget is that there may be opportunities for us to demonstrate to the state that some of those high phosphorus levels are, although we're monitoring the effluent, and that's
not necessarily the influent.
Yeah, that we really need to understand the parameters that when individual projects are getting their stormwater permit, they are just doing it for to meet the requirements for that development. But unless we start to address the cumulative effect of all of these and from all of the existing stormwater that don't have permits or that have permits that didn't require much, that, you know, the impact is on us. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for the town to look at where we could acquire additional land or easements or encourage landowners to expand their buffers or wetland restoration, or, you know, putting in some other kind of green infrastructure. So I would just like us to be remembering that there's other things that we have to, that we have opportunities to do, that may in the end
Do more.
do more than reducing the amount that
Yeah.
really we're gonna be doing by
Right.
going from 8 to
I mean,
3.
I think
there.
when we received our permit, or when it was proposed, we thought,
Yeah.
you know, that this point source is an easy target, and it's a very small percentage of what's really going into the lake. And, you know, if we were to take half of the money we're gonna spend on phosphorus reduction and put it elsewhere or spread it around, we might get much better results.
Right. I mean, the phosphorus coming from all these other places, you know, we're not doing anything to reduce that. We're
Right.
that are actually being generated in Hinesburg. So
So I think another thing that came out of this is a realization that some of our industrial users,
oh yes,
and primarily beer and the dairy and stuff, they don't put a lot of volume, but they do put a good load. And you know, I speak for myself. I mean, we can't go there tomorrow and say, you know, your fees are going up, but we need to continue to start talking with them and looking at that, and it may be that in the future, you know, depending on the loading that you're putting in, you might only be 5% of the volume, but it's 40% of the load. So there might be something there, and certainly we talked, or I suggested, if anything, we want to really encourage best practices. So there are some, you know, other companies that have those loads. They've come up with ways to minimize the loading. So, and that's just going to increase our chemical consumption and all the treatment costs associated with it.
yeah.
So,
And well, the other thing from our allocation group meeting is coming to the recognition that really our fee structure really needs to be addressed, because it does nothing to promote conservation of water or sewer, and we understand what our operating costs are and what we're trying to raise, but it's, you know, we really maybe should be charging more for usage and not having such high base fees.
yeah.
So that it's
Tie
really
it more to usage.
tie more
yeah.
to the usage, and that
Yeah.
way people would it would incentivize people to put in their low flow toilets
Yeah.
and do those, and people would be more conscious, because
Turning off the lights when you're not using
yeah,
them, right?
yeah.
So that-
So I at some point I'd like that to be on our radar to look at a different way of doing our billing.
Yeah. All right, so that was wastewater update. Sorry it took so long. I may be out, I may be away on the 7th of January, but I would join in remotely if I am. So I'll let you know as it comes closer.
I had one more thing to add. So you guys, I sent you the draft for next week's meeting already earlier last week. The only thing to add to that, and I've now since added it, is we're going to do an executive session on the front end.
Yeah.
So would we be starting again at 6 o'clock? That was going to be a
Potentially,
long.
yeah, potentially, or
What's the executive
6:30.
session?
That would be with David Roop.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Right.
So
You're suggesting 6?
I'm asking what you guys are thinking. This is going to be a long meeting.
Might be, I mean, you're welcome to start without me. I might be a few minutes late. I mean, 6:30 would be okay.
So just think about how long you
Yeah.
think you need
Okay.
for
And I
that.
would
We'd
talk
still
to him.
start the regular meeting at 7,
Well,
and
could we just say we're not going to start the regular meeting until 7:30?
then we'll be pushing it out till
Yeah.
10:30. Because right now it's ending at around 10:10, I think.
Okay.
And that's
Right.
without the executive session factored in.
Yeah.
So that's from
Well,
7.
can we do an executive session not before the meeting, but some other time?
An additional meeting
Yeah.
to do that?
might be-
Yeah.
That's-
challenge for me.
Yeah, I mean, that we could
I mean,
certainly,
'cause
that might,
that's what
that
I
might be
feel
a
like
really
is
good
that-
idea.
That, you know, we don't want to leave people waiting here because we're not going to show up here till 7:30, and
That,
so.
is there an alternative day that you guys could meet as an additional special meeting
Boy, I
to
am
do just that?
just-
Before the
That's a-
seventeenth or
so-
after the seventeenth, you're saying, or either?
Timing depends on what you guys,
And David too, probably.
Yeah.
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 Well,
I,
he
I'm
said-
just saying, I know that I am just booked solid,
Okay.
so, there might be a day next week, I'd have to look. I'm out of town for a couple more days, so, well. I
Maybe
mean,
we can, you
yeah,
guys
we
can
float
let
it.
me know
Yeah,
and see
I
what
mean,
your
I'm not against
availability
it,
is and.
just,
I mean, would it make sense to do an early morning meeting that people could go into work later? Or,
I could-
you know,
I could
or,
certainly do
or
that.
late afternoon?
I could see if David would be available for an early morning.
yeah, I mean, I could probably do that. Yeah, I mean, I could do that.
We can meet
I
like
mean-
8 o'clock, sort of a kind of a thing?
I was thinking 7 myself.
7,
but-
okay, we could do that too.
Yeah.
Didn't want to push it too hard.
I'll stick around for 7. No, just
Are there any mornings that you couldn't do at 7 o'clock?
next
I mean-
Tuesday I can't,
Not Tuesday.
but Monday I could.
We're talking,
So Monday the 17th,
Yeah.
so we'd meet at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Or Wednesday.
Just can't get enough of each other.
Yeah. Let's talk with David and see how long he thinks will take.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was wondering whether there's some questions that we want to generate ahead of time.
Right.
So that we can send them to him.
Yeah.
And he can respond, you know, he can be ready to respond to all of us. Because I
Yeah.
don't feel good about asking him questions without everybody else, you know, being aware of questions, you know. Or whether
Can you
it's.
just email him and copy everybody
You
with
could.
those questions?
You could,
Yeah,
sure.
that's-
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
And
or you
I'll
could
try
send
to
them
do
to me
that
and
too.
I send them to
Or
him.
Yeah, that might be a better idea.
Okay, that's
So
all
you know,
I
I
can
spend-
do is be
collect them.
sure that we all feel like it's okay to be, you know, asking him questions and not for him to respond
Right.
to us individually,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
To the
but
group.
to the group when we meet.
Yeah.
That's
right.
a good thing. I wanted to bring that up too, just in interest of trying to limit our amount of legal time because
Yeah.
it shows as
Right.
email
Yeah.
responses and phone. So maybe if you do send them all to me and
Yeah.
I put them together
That
and
sounds
send it
good.
to him.
Let's do
as
that
a-
in the next 2
That
days.
might be the
Within 2
best.
days, we'll
Okay,
send questions. So,
all right, can do that.
all right. Anything else? Select board
But I
forum?
assume he's gonna have an update regardless of questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He and I talked to him today before the meeting. I just wanted to double check, make sure, you know, we're not doing something that would be inappropriate. And you know, I think Responsible Growth of Hinesburg thought they might be bringing their counsel.
Oh,
so
yeah.
in the end, they I guess chose not to. And you know, that was a discussion with David whether he needed to be here or not. He thought perhaps not. I mean, but there's, you know, that we could choose to not have him here, but.
You mean tonight?
Yeah,
yeah,
if they were gonna bring theirs.
It depended
So,
on what the
it gets-
discussion.
Yeah, and
how it
David was like, I don't think so, and that's why I wanted to talk to him and say, I'm not sure exactly what the conversation's gonna be, but here's, you know, where I think we're going. And so we spent a little bit of time sort of talking about it, and he kind of gave me a little bit of update on, and I had a couple of questions, so I think if we write some questions, that would be good. Then he could come and say, here are the answers to some of those questions, and that might spur some more comments. So, but it's a moving thing. There are things happening, you know, regularly. So on the
Well, and the
on the
clock's
legal
ticking.
side, yeah, and our motion is still out there. So we haven't heard from Hannaford's about our motion
Yeah, we did.
yet. Not on our motion to stay.
Yeah, they said it was okay.
That happened today.
No, he sent us a thing that said that they agreed. But
Well,
RGH.
RGH
no,
didn't.
RGH, that's right.
Right,
yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
Hannaford's did say it was.
Yeah, okay, I may have misunderstood
I
what he
thought
said.
we did get that.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, anyways, anything else for select board forum? No? All right. So we have minutes from last week.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with any changes.
Second.
All right. I had just a couple of quick comments. In the first paragraph on public comment, and it says, the third sentence or second, Phil explained some money went to the rec fields. And as I said, some money, someone said 190,000. So I think we should put that in there.
Could I also make a request that you send this as a Word document so we can put corrections in this and not as a PDF? You know, so when I'm looking at this and I want to, I want to try and make corrections, I can do them on the computer.
Can you still do the iAnnotate? Do you ever use the iAnnotate
Oh, I
for the
forgot about
Dropbox?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you can do that with iAnnotate.
Okay,
Yep.
right. I
Yep.
just forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right, are there any other corrections? No? So there was one change. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so everyone's approved.
Motion to approve warrants and include payroll.
All right. And you looked at them, I had looked at them, so,
I think it's the same ones we did, right?
I think so, if I grabbed the right book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all those in favor of that motion to approve warrants, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are not moving into executive session, so unless there's something else, my favorite motion of the evening would be a motion to adjourn. Yeah, all right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 3 minutes off the
Say
time.
goodnight.